Hey friends, thank you for being patient. Had a couple tech issues this morning getting started, but that's all in the past now because we got a big stream for you today. As you can see, there's all kinds of things going on. Greyways Tim is petting his cat. There's arcane symbols in the frame of the stream, and we've got 4 windows to look at. Oh my goodness. Well, this almost could have been a Euron iceberg stream, Tim, but I only wanted to spend 3 hours and not 6 today. No, in all seriousness, I wanted to get right to the new theories. There's a lot of Euron stuff out there, and we are going to go over some of the basics, what we consider basics. It's still advanced ice and fire symbolism, but we wanted to get right to new theories. We have new Euron theories today. You know, obviously it's always fun to talk about Euron, but we got some new stuff, and I didn't want to spend 4 hours recapping before we got to that. So we are going to do a little bit of Symbolism 101, as you can see, but we are going to do that mostly to set up a couple of the new theories and also just new sort of windows of symbolism, which will enhance our understanding. Like, obviously, the theory that he's going to do something at Oldtown big and magical has been around for like a decade, since Feast and Dance came out, I guess, really. But what we're trying to figure out is what. You know, there's dragon horns and warlock juice, and there's, delusions of madness all swirling around in this guy's head. We know the Old Town is the oldest place in Westeros, and there's tons of secrets and magic and what's Leighton up to and the Citadel and glass candles. There's just so much going on with Euron in Old Town. Will he summon a kraken? Is he going to call one of the dragons there? And so some of the stuff what we're going to talk about today is going to try to give us some more specific ideas about what could happen. We're going to look at historical precedents of Old Town and kings and conquests there. And most of all, Tim, first of all, hi. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, yes, I get to speak now. Yes, so we'll be going through all the Old Town stuff, the Euron symbolism, and of course, my big contribution to this was the Lovecraftian symbolism. We talked Euron is the quintessential Lovecraft character. It's like George ripped him straight out of the pages of Lovecraft, made his own version, and threw him into his own story. So one thing that I've regrettably never talked about, and I'm surprised it's never come up, that I've never brought it up, is Lovecraft's dragons, Lovecraft's dragonic creatures. And when we look at them and we apply the same kind of symbolism that we do with real world mythology and the other precedents that are set up, they give a guiding light to what Euron might be up to. And I think by looking at Lovecraft's dragonic creatures and applying the aspects of them to Euron, will show that Euron will definitely obtain a dragon in some way.
Yeah, and so this is going to be fun. We know Tim's got this whole King in Yellow. Well, actually, not Tim. I should say George Martin and H.P. Lovecraft. But Euron is the King in Yellow. The King in Yellow is this very important figure from Lovecraftian lore. A lot of the Lovecraft books, of course, are somewhat connected as far as the universe goes. The King in Yellow is in. It's nice, not just in one book, but there's a few. We'll talk about that. That gives us a lot of insight as to what Euron is doing, because when we look at his Symbolism 101, we're going to see all these different things. And it's like, wow, this is a lot of different stuff. The King in Yellow gives us a little bit of a signpost as far as how George is thinking about these things being synthesized. So that will be fun. I've got some art and also notes that Tim has sent me. So this is a multi-part combined presentation that we're going to do for y'all. And yes, happy Pride. Lots of rainbows in the chat. Hello, friends. Hello, rainbow friends. Hello, friends of all stripes and flags and different color hearts. And, yeah, different kind of people. Oh, I'm selling short. We got Nana Vagar, very colorful lady herself. This shirt is available on our store, of course. I have been slacking on ordering. I got a Reading Rhaegar shirt, too, which y'all will see in the video that's coming out this week. I got a Jace and Bela video coming out. And Tim put out a video today. Also, Westeros be like, as one of your clever meme videos, Tim. I'm too old. I don't get that stuff. But the kids like it, right?
Yeah, so this time I went back, because everyone I did the first two for fun, Westeros and Essos, and then of course I don't know if they're people being cheeky or serious, but they're all like, well, you forgot this and you forgot that and you forgot this really obscure place. And I was like, you know what? Fine. We're going to go back and we're going to do another lap around the world. We're going to do Sothorios, the things that I can name at least. And then we'll hop around Westeros and Essos again and get all these things. And now I'm sure I'll still get naysayers saying like, well, you didn't do Great Morrock and you didn't do the Isle of Elf. And I'll be like, look, man, how much more do you want? I have given you over 100 slides at this point between these three videos.
Are you not entertained? Tim says.
and then for the shirt thing, yeah. So I normally wear black, so Damon's more prominent. But I am wearing my Blasted Bayaki. One sip for a two. Actually, I had the.
That's cool, and I've got that exact artwork here.
Artwork, yeah. A journey of light years begins with a sip. That's what it is. We'll be talking about the Bayaki, and we'll be talking about the Space Mead.
Nice. See how prepared I am, Tim? Right there, I had it on the dial. And so the biggest, I'm sort of, guys, I've been keeping something under wraps for months. I'm really proud of myself for not blabbing this. I will get to Super Chat in 1 second, Gabe. So, folks, it is my pleasure to announce to you that I have taken some of the dollars that you all have given me with your views and your Patreon and your channel member squishering, and I have commissioned a big piece of artwork. I've spent, well, it's not important, but it wasn't. You guys know I did a couple of commissions for the Black Gate. I commissioned a 3D artist, Chetan Biswas, to build us something incredible. And so let me go ahead and I will introduce this via video. And I believe I can. How do I do this? Source. I haven't done this in a minute. Overlay. No, is it overlay? Output. This is how I play my mythical astronomy thing. For some reason, I cannot remember how I do this. How do I play a damn video? Source. Video file. That's it. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Choose file. This will be worth it, trust me.
This is how my streams go. We learn on the fly.
This is like a drum roll. Me acting confused and trying to figure out what's going on. That's like just hear the drum. Okay, here we go. Oh my goodness, what is this? It looks like the Hightower of Oldtown, with arcane symbols carved into its face. Symbols older than Westeros itself, come from across the sea, from the great empire of the dawn. It's many windows. It's a very tall tower. Very tall tower, as you can see. Why are our names up here now? I don't understand. Oh, I think we're up. I think Lord Leighton's study is somewhere up here at the top. Yeah, I can see Leighton through one of those windows. Oh yeah, he's definitely got a glass candle up there. For show. So there it is, folks. Yeah, I'll get don't worry, I'll have epic music. I wanted to ramble over it instead, but yes, there it is. It's the Hightower of Oldtown. And I've got, I'll have some other videos. I've got other images of it, but that's it. You can see the Fused Stone Fortress on the bottom. And I'm pretty excited about this. We've been working on this for months. And I've got a big video coming, Origins of Oldtown. I was going to put it out before the season, but we did not do that. So let's go back to us. Where's my overlay? We're naked. There we go. What do you think, Tim?
That was awesome. Worth every penny.
Yes, like Uthor Hightower. I have commissioned artist Chetan Biswas, who plays the role of Bran the Builder. So it's pretty cool. I am Azor Hightower now. That's mine. It's my virtual Hightower. So I'm going to give you some other images of it too, so we can enjoy this here. I'll just put this up on the screen and get rid of the frame again for a moment. Sorry, just pay no attention to the stuff behind the scenes or whatever. Oh, it's leaving me up here. Okay, we'll put this over here. I'm going to have to rebuild this all in a second.
Yeah, pay no mind to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, whatever. Look, I've been waiting for months to show you all this. We are going to talk about Euron, but I'm going to show you this damn Hightower first. So, behold, we've got it with green flame. We've got it with red flame, because, of course, when the Hightowers go to war, we turn the beacon green. So we could do that. We got a green beacon here. We've got ships in the harbor. Doom, ding, doo, ding, doo, ding, doo, ding. Got the Fused Stone Fortress, Battle Isle. I mean, again, Chetan Biswas is the artist. He did the 3D renderings of Yeen that I've been using lately as well. And I might have him build some other stuff. But, damn. Look at that. Look how good a job he did. So, yeah. I will whip through these really quick. Ships in the harbor, like I said. We've got source lighting. Some really nice stuff. So you'll see a lot of this in the Oldtown video, obviously. Well, that's a particularly nice one. Here's we had to build a dock. We built the whole thing. And I was like, you know what? How does Lord Leighton get into his tower? And so this is the last thing we built. Built a gate and a pier and some steps. So now he can go in and out. Once every 10 years, Tim. He uses these steps.
Yeah,
and there's his door. There's the door. It's this door within a door. Got your little Hightower Sidge. I'd like the show Sidge, so I had him use that. A little more stylistic.
I mean, in a world without elevators and all those stairs, you got to think every high tower has amazing legs. They can never skip leg day.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't come down. Just to
God,
come down, he's got to train for 6 months just to get his strength up. So, I got some close-ups of the Fused Stone Fortress. Let's see. Yeah, so we worked a long time to get this texture right. And I'm very happy with how it came out. Of course, this is the fused stone that is identical to all the Valyrian stone that we see. You know what? I'm missing the chat right now. I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can see the chat. I need to see. It's not very wheelchair friendly. Yeah. We need the sorcery assist for that. I'll have Chetan add a little lift. Well, if you're wealthy, you just have people carry you. That's, you have a litter, sedan chair. That's how it is. So, it's more of the fused stone. Are the measurements true? Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Canon measurements. Of course, the Fused Stone Fortress is described as the lowest level of the high tower. The tower's built on top of it, and that means you have to go through the fortress to get into the high tower. I didn't think about that, Tim. Everybody that goes to the high tower walks through the Fused Stone Fortress, so that's pretty cool. There she is. Squat, unadorned style. So we got that going on. It's not fancy, no gargoyles, none of that. So that's you a little. This is you trying to take Battle Isle. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Never been taken, in fact. Even when Oldtown was sacked, they've never taken Battle Isle. So, there's the dock. Very nice. Very nice. And so then I got some shots of the symbols. So guys, these symbols are not canon. I took liberties here. We took liberties. I just don't imagine it being completely unadorned, So we tried to get the vibes. We went for some alchemy and some stuff like that. So, why not? Why not? We had fun with it. But yeah, I just want to stress, it's not described as having arcane symbols. It's just the vibes that it gives off. So just don't want to confuse anybody. Oh, look at that symbol in the top center. It looks familiar. And then, of course, here's when Euron shows up. Here's what the weather's going to be like. We're going to have the green beacon lit. There's going to be,
So Dave put all his money into NFTs.
Yeah, kind of, I guess.
Bubble will never burst.
Well, so the point is that this is a little bit of, the idea is kind of give back to the fandom. It's fun, but, you guys support me. This project's been going on a long time, this Lightbringer project here. Let me put the overlay back on. And it's nice to be in a position where I can do stuff like this. I want to do more of it, and I might have Chetan build us some other stuff. So let me know what you think we should build next. I was thinking, maybe like Valyria, House of the Undying. We've got some ideas. It takes time, of course, but
you're gonna make King Vizzy jealous with your version of the Inaugurium.
Exactly. Well, that's it. See, Vissy's Lego City is cool, but Chetan was not impressed by the architecture, to be honest. He's like, yeah, that's way too austere. It should look more like the Ted Nasmith Valyria and Dragonstone. So if we build some Valyria, it's going to look, properly Valyrian. But let's talk about Euron, Tim. So the way that I figured we would do this as far as the order goes. We'll go through the Symbolism 101 because that'll be quick. And it will lead right into his dragon stuff, so we'll do your section as the first official section. That will enhance all of the idea of him being Azor Ahai. I'm eventually going to do a Euron as the third head of the dragon video, but we'll cover some of that stuff here. So, moon symbolism. Euron's he's got several basic symbolism ideas. Moon symbolism, ice symbolism, darkness symbolism, blood symbolism, flood symbolism, silence symbolism. And then we've got Azor Ahai and Night's King stuff. Okay? Mm-hmm. So there's a quote in The Forsaken when Dampere is having nightmares. And it says, the moon leered with Euron's face over a black wine sea. And so that creates this idea of Euron's face being equivalent to the moon. And his eyes are interesting because, of course, he's got one blue eye and one blood eye with a patch. And these essentially represent the two moons that we used to have. But the name Euron, the reason why Euron has a moon face is because the name Euron, I believe, is derived from Europa, which is, of course, a moon of Jupiter, and also a Greek moon goddess. So the interesting thing about Europa is that Europa is an ice moon. And, of course, the whole idea of the second moon is that we used to have a second moon, and it blew up. And that's where we got the long night. World of Ice and Fire, of course, we have one moon associated with ice and one associated with fire. I noticed that pattern in the women, the moon maidens. They seem to be either fiery or icy. And so after a while, it was just like, wait a minute. And we're trying to figure out a magical reason why the seasons are messed up, right? Because George has said, well, it's not like an astrophysics explanation. It's magic. But his magic is tied to the stars and nature and stuff. So if there's an ice and fire moon, one of them gets KO'd, turned into meteors that are now on the planet, but they're toxic. This could screw up the cycle of the season. So that kind of gives me that idea too. But yeah, Europa is an ice moon. It's the most famous ice moon in the solar system. Europa and Io were the two of the most famous moons that were getting talked about a lot in the 90s when George was writing all this. Io is the opposite. Io is a fire moon. And so with Euron, we see him with this moon face, and then his two eyes are essentially telling the story. His sigil is also an eclipse. I think I put his sigil on here. Did I? I might not have. I might have forgotten his sigil. I'll dig it up real quick. Oh no, I know where it is. It's on this one. Boom. So it's the black crown. It's carried by two crows. Here they're just flying next to the crown, but whatever. And then it's this red eye with a black pupil. So the red eye with the black pupil that's an eclipse. Okay, so this whole thing with the God's eye, the eyes of God, it's a celestial parallel, right? So in Egyptian mythology, the sun and moon are viewed as the eyes of Ra. Or the sun is Ra's eye, and the moon is associated with, I believe it's Khonsu. And the idea is that the moon eye is like put out and re-established because the moon disappears and reappears, whereas the sun does not. So George is using this idea with the God's eye on his map, which is a lake with an island in the middle, and the island in the middle is the Isle of Faces. So the moon has a face, and then the Isle of Faces full of weirwood trees with faces that are moon pale. So Isle of Faces is your moon. Then the lake represents the sun, which is why George describes it as reflecting the sun, being like a sheet of beaten copper, and all these other descriptions that make the lake sun-like. And so with Euron's sigil, it's the eye of the apocalypse. It's the eye of God. This is the moment that the long night falls, when the moon wanders too close to the sun and cracks, and the dragons are born. And so his whole, his moon symbolism is all tied to the idea of moons being destroyed and triggering long nights. So hopefully if you're new to my channel, you might want to watch a couple other videos before this one. I recommend Azor Ahai, Euron, King of the Apocalypse. That's part 1. Night's King Crow's Eye is part 2. That's all the basic Euron symbolism. And then we've got the Lightbringer series for the astronomy stuff. Tim, what is your main Euron video? I know you've got a couple. To say the least.
So I have my stream, Tales of Hastur, Talk of Euron, where I was really laying out all of the Euron King in Yellow stuff, relating it back to the Lovecraftian deity of Hastur. And it comes up right here because in the Lovecraft mythos, Hastur, who is a Kraken dragon god, he is related to Cthulhu, and this is where the Euron stuff fits in. He lives on a red star called Aldebaran, which is a wandering star. And this is a real star. Aldebaran is a real star. It is in the constellation of Taros. It forms Taros's angry red eye, because Aldebaran is a red giant. And it's called the Wanderer because as it moves through the nighttime sky, it looks like it's chasing a star cluster called the Hyades. And the Hyades in Greek myth are like guardian spirits to sailors. This is all old world astronomy and star mapping and navigating the sea. This stuff was all important to them. And the other thing about Aldebaran is with Euron's sigil, as you said, like the pupil in front of the red star. Well, there is a real life phenomenon that our moon and Aldebaran enter, and it's called an occultation. It's when a moon wanders in front of a star and it sits there for a period. And the moon looks like a black orb in front of a red pupil. Makes it look like a red eye with a black pupil. And it looks as if the red star, since Aldebaran is a red giant, is going to swallow the moon. Our moon does this. Every couple of decades, the moon will wander in front of Aldebaran and become the pupil to Taros's angry red eye. So Euron's personal sigil is like when the moon enters its occultation phase with Aldebaran. That's exactly what it would look like from afar.
There you go. And so that's a good example of how George is using the King in Yellow symbolism. Mm-hmm. it ties together a lot of the loose threads in Ice and Fire, whether that's the moon, the eclipse idea, the red comet, the apocalypse, all this stuff. Yeah, now we all have Portishead in our heads. Some of us do. The King in Yellow is great, and it's also going to combine the Storm God stuff, the undersea Cthulhu, Kraken stuff, like all these disparate things that seem separate. When you look at the King in Yellow, it's like it all comes together. So we know, obviously, this is probably one of the reasons why George used the red comet as this wandering red star, is partly based on this Aldebaran idea.
Yeah,
and it's the sinister layer to the red star stuff, because a lot of it's tied to Dany and Jon. It's very hopeful prophecy of, saviors coming to save the world. But of course, there's this also darker side to the Azor Ahai mythology too. And that's where this Aldebaran stuff comes in.
Yeah, because he's using Aldebaran, he's using Mars. So Aldebaran's a red wandering star, Mars is a red wandering planet. So for George, it's like, well, I guess I'll make a red wandering comet. That way I'm not being exactly the same.
And then it also, of course, ties into, because George is a collector, Thundar. We know the intro to Thundar has a red comet that screws up the moon. It cracks the moon, and it scrambles Earth and knocks Earth back from a technological age back to an age of sword and sorcery. And this is a Saturday morning Hanna-Barbera kids show, but it's something that George was like, oh, okay. He stitches these things together. Once he gets onto the idea of a red comet or red star, he's looking around. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to use Mars and Ares mythology. I'm going to use Thundar, So it is a rogue planet. It's a comet that's actually a rogue planet. That's correct. Which could be a clue about the red comet that we see actually being a piece of this destroyed moon, which is very possible, because Melisandre seems to show us that kind of a thing. But anyway, so Euron is a moon character, but he is showing us moon destruction ideas. We'll come back to his face with the map, but basically it's the blue eye is the ice moon, and the eye that is covered and, potentially marred and bloody, that would be the moon that got destroyed in the past. Now, he has ice symbolism because he has blue lips, and he drinks the shade of the evening. Blue lips, of course, you have blue lips when you have hypothermia. So the whole, we know that the warlocks, all of their symbolism is icy, right? They're cold blue shadows, cold blue shadow heart. The shade of the evening is literally talking about the long night when everything is dark, right? So you drink this stuff and your lips turn blue. So it's like you're getting frozen. So it's just, very easy ice symbolism. And then Euron has all this stuff about the others. It's the others double entendre stuff. They talk about, Euron's other captains and his other ships and his other men and the others on his ship, being monsters. There's like 6 or 7 of them. And then the drowned men are also labeled as others in many scenes. There's a great one with the Spar talking to Aeron Damphair, and he says, I would not speak of these matters before these others. And he says, these others are my drowned men. So, and of course the drowned men, they rise with this credo that mimics the whites, right? What is dead can never die. And that comes from Lovecraft.
Yeah. In strange eons, even death may die. So yeah, George took the Lovecraft phrase, retweaked it, and made it the prayer of the Ironborn religion.
And so everybody's always noticed that what is dead can never die. Well, that would even more properly apply to the whites. And so these drowned men are playing the role of an army of whites, and Euron is now leading them. So this is a way of showing that he is a Night's King figure, someone that could eventually lead an actual army of undead men. And then the idea that the drowned men have been killed and resurrected in the sea, of course, ties into the idea that the White Walkers are connected to the Weirwood net, and that their power is a mutated form of Weirwood power their raising of corpses is like a dead form of skin changing and all that stuff. So the whites are reborn from the green sea. And look, this is a stream. This is not a beginner stream. If I was to try to explain every idea I have to refer to here, it would turn into like David Lightbringer theory iceberg. But hopefully you know about the green sea. The astral realm is like a sea, a cosmic sea, and the green seers swim in it. And then there's the whole river of time thing, right? Time is like a river. People are trapped in its flow, but the weirwoods are outside of that river. They're not moved by it. And when the green seers hook up to the weirwoods, they too are outside of the river of time now, and they can see the whole thing. So the green sea metaphor is the number one metaphor for the weirwood net. You know, a green body of water, a green sea. And so things going into the sea and being reborn, that is a parallel to being reborn from the weirwood net. Mm. And so Euron has this army of drowned men that have been reborn from the sea. And they even have driftwood cudgels. So they've got like wooden weapons. And when they clack the cudgels together, it says it's like an army of trees going to war with each other, you know, clacking their branches. So it's very straightforward as far as that goes. You want to say something?
Yeah, and what Euron's doing is he's leading a corruption of this, because the drowned men in the Ironborn religion, like only the drowned men could become drowned priests. These are the acolytes of the drowned god. Yet Euron rejects the drowned god. So him taking the drowned men and making them his thralls is a corruption of this. It's the same as Stannis burning the idols of the Seven when he accepts R'hllor. It's the first men chopping down the weirwood trees, but then later on taking on that as their faith. It is a corruption of these fundamental religious elements that Euron is doing in his backlash against Ironborn culture, while at the same time still using them as the means to get what he needs.
Which is a beautiful way to constantly tie everything back to Euron's theme, which is abomination, unholy, defilement. And that's the whole thing with the creation of the others and the whites, is it is a defilement and an abomination, you know, the result of this defilement of the weirwood net. So I got a couple super chats that I forgot to answer. So let's do that. What's going on with Squisher Pins? Orange Tabby. All the North America ones have been mailed out. So if you live in Canada or the U.S., they've been mailed out. And Maynard James Plum is now working on Europe. Thank you for asking, because I was supposed to say that. Joshua writes, Euron is big everywhere other than where it counts. You know, speculate all you want to. Thank you, Clowny Brown. Love the 3D rendering. Thank you, Kim. What's up, Maddie? And, all right, we're back to the chats. So, ice symbolism. It is there. Then there's the darkness symbolism, which is tied to ice, but darkness is kind of its own thing. So his hair is midnight black, like a black sea with narrow white cap. Okay, he wears Baelor Blacktide's black cloak. Baelor Blacktide's name, Black Tide. A black tide is a black flood. So it's like he's wearing a cloak of darkness. His ship, the Silence, the sail is like a starless sky. That's the long night sky when there's no stars because the smoke has blotted everything out. I've got pictures of the Silence here. Hang on. Let me pull these up. This one is by UPB. This is my favorite Silence picture. So yeah, the sail is black. On the prow is a black Iron Maiden. Sing your favorite Iron Maiden song now if you want to. I'm not going to sing today. But yes, she is black. She has no mouth. She is a symbol of the moon, the one that was destroyed. The pieces of that moon may be the oily stone. Or at least the oily stone may be... Yeah, let's not even get into that. Let's just say that, okay? And so this black Iron Maiden, it represents the moon. She is mouthless. She is silent. There is a whole... Well, we'll talk about the Silence symbolism in a minute. We'll stick with the darkness. Then there is, black ship, black Iron Maiden. He drinks Shade of the Evening, like we said, which is liquid darkness. And then in the visions of him, his face is floating on the black wine sea. So it's a sea of darkness, a flood of darkness. The black tide cloak, again, black tide. It's like a black flood. One black eye full of malice is how Theon... No, there's two different things. Theon thinks about what's under his patch, and he thinks about a black eye. And then when Makoro sees Euron in his vision, what's the language, Tim?
When Makoro's the squid with the and there was like the bleeding eye.
It's like a shadow with 10 long arms, and a black eye full of malice.
Because at first I was thinking of seaweed in his hair, but that's the ghost of Highheart who says that one.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the black eye full of malice is that the R'hllorys believe that the Great Other has a black eye, and they talk about not drawing his black eye upon us and this and stuff. So this black eye is like, it's the eclipse. I mean, that's the real black eye. Because like if you worship the sun as a god, an eclipse is pretty spooky, and that's why there's a lot of really spooky mythology around eclipses in world mythology. So this is like the eye of God getting put out or turning black. So yeah, this black eye that is associated with the Great Other, it is not a coincidence that Euron has a black eye as well.
Yeah, because if you go back like far enough, like probably the earliest means of religious idol worship that we could think of would be sun worship. So for the sun to be blocked out, especially for early man, thousands and thousands of years ago, that would be like a horrifying nightmare for them.
And the idea of the black crown is spelled, I mean, that is an eclipse idea, because let me see if I can find one with this black crown. Well, that's good. There's the black eye. The golden crown that kings wear is supposed to mimic the sun's rays. So a black crown is a black sun. Straight out. A couple super chats. Any thoughts on Euron having multiple deaths like Beric Dondarrion would become more like a deep one with each resurrection? I don't see that. I think that he's transforming himself more like Melisandre, where his use of magic is gradually draining away his humanity and transforming him into a warlock, I guess you would say. We could see that the Undying, who have been presumably drinking Shade of the Evening for a very long time, have become sort of insubstantial. They're slowed down. They're sort of wraith-like. So this is probably, if Euron were to keep going. But we're going to talk about the idea of Euron being possessed. I think that's kind of where it's at as far as Euron losing his humanity. So I don't know about multiple deaths, but it's not impossible that he could be resurrected. Who would resurrect? See, I don't know who would resurrect him. Like, Dampire's not going to resurrect him. Who would he trust to bring him back to life? Once Euron's dead, everyone's going to be like, that's good, actually. Let's go ahead and call that a day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell if Euron has, like, true supporters. He has his mooks and his lackeys, guys like the wenches and left-hand Lucas Cod, but those guys are bought. That's really all that it is. I wouldn't say that they're actually loyal.
Yeah, so I tend to think that it's more about transformation and less about resurrection for him. And then we've got, let's see here, the blood symbolism. No, more Nightfall. So Urathon Nightwalker is probably his alias in Karth. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about the parallels to King Urathon Goodbrother?
Yeah, so King Urathon Goodbrother, known as the Bad Brother, he wins the King's Moot, but then he puts all of his competitors to death. But then there is another one guy named Theon who was out reaving and didn't get to put his hand in the King's Moot. He comes back, declares this invalid. He gets known as Theon the Latecomer. And so that sets up the precedent that our Theon Greyjoy, since he was not present at the King's Moot that happens in Feast, this again is George using an example from history, setting precedent, which he does all the time for there to be a repeat of this. And that's how Euron loses politically. Now, for someone like Euron, if he is able to tap into all of this arcane magic, losing politically is going to be, that's just the first of many hurdles. But again, it is setting the precedent for Theon to come back and lay some kind of claim to the Iron Islands that might throw some kind of wrench into Euron's plans.
Then there's one other Ironborn king that he parallels, which would be the Red Hand. And what was his name? That's not Urathon. He's is he a Urathon too?
I thought it was Uragon.
Uragon.
Uragon Redhand.
Coincidentally, the name of Uthor Hightower's son. By the way. Yeah, is that right? The Red Hand?
Let's see. Euron Greyjoy.
Because he killed a bunch of captains and kings at the King's Moot. His name also close to Euron. Point is, Euron parallels these two guys, Urathon and Uragon. These two dastardly, evil, Ironborn kings. And then there's this fellow in Karth that Dany hears about, Urathon Nightwalker. And she is told that the glass candles are burning again in the house of Urathon Nightwalker, where they have not burned in a century or more. So, Euron has been missing, from the Iron Islands for several years. And then sails back the day after Balon dies, because he paid the Faceless Men to do that. But also because he has a glass candle and knew when it happened. Because the Faceless Men, when you pay them for a murder, they don't tell you when it's going to happen. They just... And Jacob even says, maybe in a day, maybe in a year, but sooner or later, Because you see how they do it. They are very careful. They lay their plans. They set it up. They hang out in the black cells to get, fictitiously arrested so they can end up somewhere to do something. So the idea is that Euron, he paid a Faceless Man to kill Balon, but he knew when to sail back. The only real explanation is a glass candle. So it's like, yes, Urathon Nightwalker, that is Euron's alias. He's been hanging out in Karth, which makes sense. He says he's been to Ashai and Valyria. So Karth is in between those two places. He's sailing around the Jade Sea doing pirate stuff, and he needs a fake name. So Urathon Nightwalker, that's him. And that gives us this clue that Euron might be using glass candles. And it just makes too much sense. So I'm very attached to it. But that's just more night symbolism, more Nightwalker symbolism. One letter away from White Walker. But Euron just it just sounds like him. Nightwalker, Warlock Lord.
Yeah. And it said to kill a king, to hire the Faceless Men to kill a king. I mean, even though it's Balon and we can be like, yeah, king, he still has the title King of the Iron Islands. So one would assume the price that Euron paid for a Faceless Man to do this would be incredibly high. Euron mentions having a dragon's egg. He claims that he tossed that some mage from Essos kept promising to help him hatch as long as he gave him all the gold he needed. But after a while, he got sick of the guy's excuses. When questioned on what happened to the dragon's egg, he says he threw it into the sea when he was in one of his moods. But it's possible that might have been the thing that he paid the Faceless Men for. Jaqen H'ghar needs to have some kind of reason to be seeking out the book that he's seeking at the Citadel, and them having a dragon egg in their possession would make the most sense.
Sorry, the chat's making me chuckle. I cannot repeat what made me chuckle, but it's up there on the screen for you to read. So this is, I've been neglecting our artist names. This is Borja Pindado, Euron on the Seastone chair. I also just showed you Mike Hallstein. That's his Euron, which I don't use enough. It's particularly insane-looking Euron. This is Euron Crow's Eye by Michelle's Mini. Michelle S. Mini, could be. And the same artist here. And this one is cool because we got the two-part. There's the patch. There's the blood eye. Patch, blood eye. So the patch itself is sometimes black and sometimes blood red. So it has more darkness and blood symbolism. Yeah, so Jenny, we're going to get into that idea. You know that I do think that. You're prodding me to talk about it. Yes, you know that I do think that is possible. We're going to get there. So let me just see, what other art did I use? I just want to finish calling out. This is Draft Urgy. This is The Quiet Soul 21. Luciferys. This is a very good starry warlock wine. Alcoholic Rattlesnake / Luciferys. You can find her on Instagram. And this is Mike Hallstein's Euron. I'll leave that one up for a second. So, yes, the blood symbolism, the blood eye, the eye patch is bloody. He has the blood red ship, Silence, the vision of him sailing on a sea of blood, and he may be the Bloodstone Emperor reborn. So all of the blood symbolism, it's not just blood magic and death. It's this idea of bleeding stars. It's the sigil again, okay? It's the waves of blood. These are the waves of bleeding stars in the sky during the long night. It's the apocalypse. It's the black tide, the real flood of darkness comes from the moon. It's in the sky. That's what blocks out the stars. So just watch my other Euron videos. I really would enjoy just repeating all of that stuff and reading all of those quotes to you again, but that would take 2 hours, and I already made those videos. So I'm going to force myself to move on and hope that you guys are vaguely familiar with this. So then the flood symbolism, we've already seen a lot of it. You know, a sea of blood, a black wine sea, the black tide. Mel's in a vision sees towers by the sea crumbling under a dark tide. Those may be the towers either of Oldtown or the place right outside Oldtown, whose sigil is 3 towers. Which castle is that? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Which, there's a couple that have 3 towers as a sigil.
Yeah, let's not worry about it. It could apply to Euron. And then there are these 2 Valyrian steel swords that are in Ironborn possession, and they both copy Euron's symbolism. So one of them is Red Rain. Same thing. A rain of blood. Cue the Slayer. It's the rain of bleeding stars. That's the rain of blood. And the bleeding stars are black meteors that are like dragons and swords. Red Rain is a Valyrian steel sword. Okay? Similarly, the Ironborn also possess Nightfall. Nightfall, the long night is a nightfall. It has a moonstone pommel. Nightfall does. So where does the long nightfall come from? The rain, the red rain of sword-like meteors, it comes from the moon. They are moonstones. So those 2 swords really tell the whole story, and those are in possession of Euron, in that the people who own those swords are his to command. And if he wants the swords, he can take them. So that's Red Rain and Nightfall.
They're begrudgingly in his command because Red Rain belongs to House Drum and Nightfall belongs to House Harlaw. And both Dunstan Drum and Roderick the Reader don't really care for Euron, but they begrudgingly have to call him king. What's important there, though, is that House Drum's seat is Old Wick, so Nagas Hill, Nagas Ribs. Their seat is the most important island for the Ironborn religion. And then Harlaw, House Harlaw, is the richest Ironborn house. So economically and politically, they are very important. So the fact that Euron really needs to get these guys under his thumb, but they're the ones that are really pushing back, are another one of these hurdles that Euron has yet to really kind of take care of. But he's been aiming to by removing pieces from them that they find important. That's why he gives Andric, who is Dunstan Drum's right-hand man, one of the Shield Islands, and why he gives Roderick the Reader, his nephew, who is also his heir because he has no living sons, he gets one of the Shield Islands. Euron, since he can't get the Drums and the Harlaws to play ball, he is completely undermining them.
And that makes sense because like Valyrian steel swords are a big status symbol. And so, yeah, the two houses that possess them are houses of very high status. And then with the Harlaw, it's Harris Harlaw who has Nightfall now. So he's a younger member of the house. There's a bunch of Harlaws. They have different castles and stuff, right?
Yeah, Harris Harlaw is Roderick the Reader's nephew. He is the heir, but he is given Grey Shield, which I've made the connection is that's the seat of House Grimm. So they gave House Grimm's seat to the Reaper of Harlaw. But yeah, the guy, even though Roderick the Reader is the head of House Harlaw, his nephew, who has been gifted this island, Euron's gifts are poison, he is the one actually wielding Nightfall because he's the knight. Roderick the Reader is not a martial man. He's the reader.
I love that bringing together the Grim Reaper thing, like slowly and subtly like that. It's really funny. George is a bastard. So the silence symbolism, obviously the ship is called the Silence and it's crewed by mutes. Then Folia Flowers, he cuts out her tongue before he ties her to the front of the ship to sacrifice her. So she is then like the mouthless Iron Maiden on the Silence. Mm-hmm. So I believe all of that symbolism is essentially tying back to the Weirwoods, which have bloody mouths and do not speak. So this is a symbol of losing your speech. It's a whole concept. It's a whole complicated thing I can't get into, but it has to do with Nissa Nissa and this violation of nature that Azor, the original Azor Ahai committed. And we've seen that the ship is an important Weirwood metaphor. Maybe that's the best way to say this. The Green Seers are sailing the Green Sea. They are sailing the astral plane. Their ship is the Weirwood. And so we see George create these ship metaphors that are tied to Weirwoods, such as on the Iron Islands, where Naga's ribs are flipped over Weirwood boat. Okay, so the Green Seers use the Weirwoods like ships to sail the Green Sea. We look at Euron's ship, and it has the blood of the Weirwood trees, and it has the silent thing of the Weirwood trees, but it's black. So this is kind of like the ultimate corruption of the Weirwoods. However, that ship is a version of a Weirwood boat. And the blood and the mouthless, the tongueless thing is similar. The silent, like the Weirwoods are a silent boat that you can sail.
Well, we also know that George loves to make his music references, so it is the sound of silence. That is Silent Simon and Garfunkel. And the opening lyrics to that song, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence." Tell me that does not all directly apply to both Euron and Bran with the idea of Green Seer dreams.
You kind of just blew my mind there, Tim. I only think about that song in meme form now. Right? But no, that's...
Yeah, look up the lyrics to Sound of Silence. They really, they apply greatly both to Euron and to Bran.
That is so spot on. That is incredible. Okay, I've got a bunch of PayPals here. Kelly Johnson has got many questions. Let me just take a look at these, see which ones are applicable. Brett Conley's asking about Brandon the Shipwright. I can tie him into a section later. That is sort of relevant. Remind me to talk about Brandon the Shipwright when we talk about Orion. Kelly Johnson, what fell sorceries will Euron bring to bear in Oldtown? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, Kelly. that's a whole stream. That's worth this appointed stream. The mercenary fleets, the Hightowers are trying to hire BNF to stymie his ambitions. No, the Hightowers aren't even going to fight Euron. Spoiler alert. I'll tell you about that in a second. He's asking why we don't see hint of the Hightower scrying sorcery in House of the Dragon. It just doesn't have anything to do with that plot line. I don't really have a better answer for you. It just doesn't. What ancient battle happened at Oldtown? I will talk about that in my Oldtown video. Is Euron more of an REO Speedwagon or a death metal kind of guy? Well, apparently he's a Simon and Garfunkel type of guy. We just answered that. Kelly Johnson, dude, how many questions? Along with the Sword Dawn, will Jon Snow need to acquire Euron's Valyrian armor? I think it would fit Jon very well. We'll have to see. We are going to talk about them fighting. We got a Harrenhal theory for you. We'll talk about that. Okay. So then, I love you, Kelly. You just have a lot of questions.
Oh.
Okay.
Never take back what I said about Sound of Silence applying to Euron. I'm reading these lyrics more. If anything, they apply to the damp hair.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole continuum of their relationship and their religion. But, yeah. I mean, the damp hair is and Euron are kind of like foils for each other, so.
Yeah. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence. Yeah, that's nobody listening to the damp hair about Euron.
So then we've got... to tie all this together, what does all this mean? Well, it means that Euron is the bad version of Azor Ahai reborn. He's the Bloodstone Emperor reborn. That's what it all comes down to. Like I said, the original Azor Ahai, there are some clues. He might not be a hero. He killed his wife. He broke the moon. Talked about this. He parallels a Bloodstone Emperor who also killed his wife. But that story says that the wife killing causes the long night. So I think that Azor Ahai killing Nissa Nissa, it's the same act. It caused the long night. It broke the moon. So we're going to get both heroic and evil versions of Azor Ahai. Euron is the evil one. Mm-hmm. It's not Dany. Sorry. And then he gives that speech about the bleeding star. You know, the bleeding star signals the end of days. The new god will be born from the graves and charnel pits. Two thumbs point at this guy. So he's literally trying to become a god emperor during the long night when the bleeding star comes. So he sees himself as Azor Ahai reborn. He is dressing up as a Valyrian, of course, with his cosplay. His armor, his dragon horn. He claims to have been to Valyria. He came from Ashai and Valyria, not Valyrian. Autocorrect always changes Valyria to Valyrian. Very annoying. Anyway, Azor Ahai came from Ashai, and Valyria is basically the descendant of Azor Ahai. So Euron is... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was looking at that super chat, but they didn't have enough characters. You ride the what? You need to finish your sentence.
Yeah, I was just waiting for that. I assume the rest of it's coming. And then he speaks of having seen golden gods with gemstone eyes, which sound like they could be Great Empire of the Dawn idols, maybe. But more importantly, he speaks about Dany as being the most beautiful woman in the world whose eyes are amethysts. So he's speaking of Dany in terms of the Amethyst Empress, which is a hint that he's plugged into that lore. And then he's about to use Folia flowers for a blood magic ritual. So he's using her as Nissa Nissa. I think that's what he would want to do with Dany. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of that stuff, Sislin, the Norse shamanism. We're getting there. Got to stick to my outline, guys. I'm sorry. Otherwise, it'll be all over the place. Even more than it is. And
yeah,
I mentioned, okay, so two of Azor Ahai's symbols are at Oldtown, waiting for Euron. This is something I noticed in the research. So the tower is crowned with a head of red flame. Crowned with flame. That phrase is used a few times. Azor Ahai wears a crown of flame. Stannis sees a vision of it, a crown of flame that consumes him. And he's like, do you think I know what that means, Davos? Okay. Then the shadow sword. When Stannis does his shadow baby, it has a shadow sword version of Lightbringer, which I think is essentially describing the real nature of Lightbringer, because he became king during the long night, and the Lightbringer meteors created the darkness. Mm-hmm. And so the shadow sword and the crown of flame both of those symbols are attached to Oldtown. The Hightower says that its shadow cut the city like a sword. So it has a shadow sword, and it's crowned with flame. So if Euron goes to the Hightower and does any sort of magical transfiguration type of thing, yeah, it's like he's going to become Azor Ahai there. The Azor Ahai symbols are waiting for him right at the top of the tower. So that's pretty cool. And then some people think that his eye might be an oily black stone, much in the way that Crowfoot Umber put dragon glass in his eye. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I like the idea that Euron is keeping some kind of dragon glass, or obsidian or some kind of black stone underneath his eye patch in his black eye. If we think of the glass candles being like cell phones for this world, then him having like a oily black stone in his eye would be like his Bluetooth set. But yeah, definitely can see it. And Euron also would be the type of guy to do like the Terminator thing. And if he sees plucking his own eye out as a means of getting ahead, especially because that's a direct Odin thing, I wouldn't see him not doing it. He doesn't seem to be above paying his own. He's definitely willing to pay the blood of others, but I think if push came to shove, he's willing to pay his own blood too, if it means getting further in something.
So 2 things. 1, shout out to the Azores, which are not Atlantis, but definitely a cool set of islands in the middle of the Atlantic. So cheers to Teuton. Just gotta say hi to the Azores, since we're talking about Azor Ahai. And then, the thinking about Euron and the Terminator eye sink scene kind of fit. It kind of makes sense. That would be nuts. That would be nuts.
When Odin plucks out his own eye, he throws it into the pools of what is it? What does Odin do with his eye?
The Well of Mimir.
The Well of Mimir. That was it. Yeah.
We're getting to that too. That's on here as well. We're so close. We're also so close to talking about Bloodraven and Bran and Euron. That's a big part of what we're going to do here. I'm going to let Tim do his Sean Talk thing first. But I've got a whole section coming basically comparing Bran's psychedelic journey and Euron's. So this is one of the new theories that I have for you today. Chloe, it is coming. I said we weren't going to do a lot of review. I'm doing this as fast as I can. I just need to put this stuff in the stream here so that we have this. We're creating a palette that we're going to paint with. It's all black and red paint, and there's some dark blue in there, and that's it. So
yeah. You can't build the Hightower without a foundation.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Thank you. It's just warming up here with my metaphors. All right. So he is the worst kind of Azor Ahai come again. He may have. The reason why I think he may have a bloodstone eye, an oily black stone eye, is because of what George is doing with bloodstone. Now, bloodstone is a real stone. George is working with the sort of mythic properties of it and creating his oily black stone. So it's not literally the mineral bloodstone. But bloodstones are very dark green with little flecks of bright red, almost like splotches of paint. And the mythology of it is that it was a piece of green chalcedony at the foot of the cross, and Jesus' blood dripped on it, and that's bloodstone. So it has this association with holy sacrificed blood, and it's dark green. So you think of Nissa's sacrificed blood in the Green Sea and stuff like that. It's very potent idea. But the first thing about the cursor. Sorry. But the first thing about the bloodstone is that because he's calling comets and meteors bleeding stars, those stones, the meteorites, are bloodstones. They are the bleeding stars, the stones that are at the heart of the bleeding stars. So when they say the heart of a fallen star, those are bloodstones in that sense. And in particular, the Bloodstone Emperor, he worshipped a black meteor that fell from the sky, right? So we can put this together and say he took his name after the meteor. The bleeding star fell to the ground and he worshipped the stone and then said, I am the Bloodstone Emperor. You see what I'm saying? So Euron's eye, it's associated with blood and darkness. It's either a black eye or a blood eye. It's got a patch that's either black or blood red. The bleeding stars are black stones that are called bloodstones. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. And also, the oily stone has magical toxicity to it. So if he's got one in his eye, it's like rotting his brain, which that would be cool. It's like a radioactive rock in his skull.
And he's been sitting the sea stone chair, which is also oily black stone. One of the things I've said about Balin Greyjoy, because Balin Greyjoy looks a lot older than he really is. This idea of it sucking the life out of you could explain why Balin was so withered, and yet Euron seems to be sitting on the chair without issue at all.
Well, he hasn't been sitting on it for nearly as long.
No.
So,
but it doesn't complain. It likes the way it sits on.
He likes the way it likes the shape of his ass. Yeah, no, I get it. So, and then the other thing is he is a new Night's King figure. Like I said, his people are others. He's got the army of drowned men. We talked about this. And then when you put all this stuff together, the darkness, the moon damage, the eclipse, the waves of bleeding stars, the nightfall, this is all Long Night symbolism. He doesn't have any symbolism that isn't associated with the Long Night. It's all apocalyptic, darkness, Long Night, all the pieces of the Long Night, the darkness, the bleeding stars, the icy magic. It's all that's what he's made out of.
No sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
No,
I mean the worst character for us to open with at the beginning of Pride Month, if anything. Morse code food is saying it could actually just be a dragon glass eye, but he can light it and use it like a glass candle, whereas crow food just has a hunk of it in there. It's not, he's not using it. I said his Bluetooth.
I hadn't thought about that. I thought about the dragon glass as like a symbol of magical sight. But I hadn't thought about a literal dragon glass eye like on fire. That'd be crazy. We'll see. Mm-hmm. It definitely needs to be one of those two things.
I mean, we have precedent set for it with guys like Crow's Food Umber, with guys like Aemond One Eye, of sticking things in your empty eye socket that could potentially help channel magical energy while also fitting in your pocket. They're convenient.
And we are going to talk about Melora the Mad Maid, Melora Hightower. I've got a new idea about her, Sean, coming up. So then Euron is the most obvious third act villain, which just suggests him as, if somebody's going to... The idea with the Night's King thing is that there's no Night's King in the books. There's no leader of the others that we've seen. Maybe we don't need one, but maybe we'll get one. And it seems like they're looking for one with the whole Waymar prologue and Jon's symbolism and stuff. Basically, they're looking for a new Night's King. I've got a video called A New Night's King that explains this. And the two candidates are Euron and Jon for different reasons. They might want to steal Jon's body. Euron might think that he actually can control the others. Or Euron might be possessed, as we said, by the lingering spirit of the original Azor Ahai, which is in the Weirwood net, and that it would be the Great Other. So he might be Azor Ahai reborn again in the most literal sense of anyone in the story. Okay? And again, I've got videos about this. Night's King Azor Ahai explains this. But the basic theory is that Azor Ahai, his original purpose of coming to Westeros and killing Nissa Nissa, who seems to have been a child of the forest, is to invade and steal the power of the Weirwood net. But this had the side effect of exiling all the Green Man and Green Seer spirits that were in the Weirwood net. It kicked them out, and they became the others. And Azor Ahai ended up on the flip side of this as Night's King, as the leader of the others. But he's just a spirit. And he's in the Weirwood Net. He's still trapped in there. He's sort of like the leader of the others, but from inside the Weirwood Net. And this has heavy, heavy parallels to Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, which if you're familiar with Gray Areas channel, you know about Memory and Sorrow and Thorn. There's an Azor Ahai-like wizard from the past called Inaluki, and he's stuck in the ether, and he's trying to be reborn, and he does it by body snatching somebody. And so we might see something like that, where Azor Ahai, his original spirit is in there. It's the Great Other. And in a very Lovecraftian way, it might come to possess Euron. Or maybe already has, Tim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn has the Witchwood. Euron drinking Shade of the Evening, which is the wine of warlocks. That is a way of saying that the Shade of the Evening is like warlock wood. George does love taking the masculine and feminine things and inverting them a lot, so.
Oh, I never noticed the word Ra is in Azor Ahai, if you run it together. That's interesting. Yeah, so Euron, we're not in his head. So when he gets possessed, how will we know? Will he start acting crazy? You mean like he already does? I don't think he has been possessed yet. I think there will be a noticeable change. If it does happen, that'll probably be the end result of, whatever happens at the top of the Hightower.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Because Sean Slighted asked, is Euron the backup? And that is what I've come to theorize, at least, is that, Euron does seem like he's going to be the plan B Night's King. That if the others can't get Jon's body, that we've talked about, like the others will get Jon's body for a little while, but he'll probably be wrestled back. Could be from Bran, could be from Melisandre. I like the idea of both because that's the implementation of ice magic, fire magic, and green seer magic. Jon symbolically becomes the trident for a moment, red, blue, and green, as he is ripped back from the others and brought back to the living. But if that happens, then the White Walkers are going to be like, well, we were so close. But then they can see Euron and whatever shenanigans he pulls at the Hightower, especially if and it could coincide with the blowing of Dragonbinder, of Euron having a dragon might then start to look very, very good to the others as another potential if they lose Jon.
And then, if Euron's gonna be the one to be the third dragon rider, if he steals a dragon, then it really starts to line up with the idea of him also being a Night King. Because it's not the idea of the Night King riding an ice dragon. The show didn't make that up, guys. Let me just tell you, some version of that came from George. There will be a frozen or whited dragon of some kind. I believe it will be Viserion, and that's the one Euron's going to be on. And Tim's going to talk about the idea of riding a dead dragon in a minute, which is actually right now. It's pretty much where we're going to be. If Euron rides one of these dragons, that's also lining up with him being Night King, because the original Azor Ahai became Night's King. So he himself is a frozen dragon figure. Jon also a frozen dragon figure. It's kind of a thing. Stannis has the same symbolism. And then Euron is full of hubris, like original Night's King, a man that knew no fear. And that's how he's going to sort of get in all this trouble, because he just knows no limits. Also, the Night's King was a King Crow. He was a Night's Watchman who declared himself king, according to the legend. And Euron is a King Crow as well. So a lot of that lines up pretty well. So, Tim, let me turn you loose, and I'm going to pull up your art, or the stuff that you sent me. And I'm also going to go get Cleo, because I'm tired of hearing her scream. And I'll be right back. Go ahead and get started.
Okay, so now we're hopping over to my notes. So this is the section on Lovecraft's dragons. Now, Lovecraft did not use dragons in the traditional sense, the way we would think of them in his writing. But he did use a number of dragonic creatures. They're more like chimeras. They're described as a mix of dragons and other creatures. And the four main ones, three of which are important for Euron, they are the Elder Gods, or at least some of the Elder Gods, the Night Gaunts, the Shantoks, and the Bayaki. The image that Dave has up there is a Night Gaunt. But I want to start with the Elder Gods first. So there are a number of Elder Gods. There's dozens.
Tim, you want to start with which one?
I wanted to start with the Elder Gods. That's just Cthulhu. Most people probably.
I got it. I got that for you. Hang on. Keep talking.
Okay. All right. So there are a number of Elder Gods, but the two most important to this story, as far as Euron goes, are Cthulhu and Hastur, because Cthulhu is essentially the drowned god in George's world, and Hastur is essentially the storm god in George's world. Cthulhu and Hastur are both elder gods. They are both described as a mix of kraken and dragon. They got the squid heads and dragon wings. Cthulhu lives under the sea in the sunken city of R'yla. This is the Drowned King's. You apply it to Song of Ice and Fire, Drowned King's watery halls. It's like an underwater Valhalla. Cthulhu is gray-green. So, Grey King and the Green Sea, both applying to Ironborn mythos. Cthulhu's greatest power is dream manipulation. This is something we see all throughout A Song of Ice and Fire. Dreams, the trips that Damphair takes on Shade of the Evening, astral projection, all Green Seer, dream manipulation, all of it is greatly in here. So Cthulhu is essentially the drowned god. And then he has a brother named Hastur. Hastur is a yellow kraken, but he also has the dragon wings. And it's important to note that for the Ironborn drawing so much on Cthulhu mythology, yet the Greyjoys, who are the Lord Paramounts, the Lord Reapers of the Iron Island, their sigil is not a gray kraken or a green kraken, which would be, if they were trying to elicit Grey King or Green Sea kind of things. But no, it's not. It's a yellow kraken, like Hastur is a yellow kraken. And yep, he is a storm god. And it's also important to note that the Baratheons do the same thing. It's just inverted colors. The Baratheons, the Stormlands, they are storm kings. It's black and yellow, yellow and black. George, you can see how George is playing with this. But in Ironborn mythology, the drowned god wars against the storm god. Hastur is a storm god. He is a god of cosmic winds. And as Cthulhu lives in a sunken city, Hastur lives on a red star. That's the red star of Aldebaran. And they war against each other, but they're brothers. They're at odds. And so that's like Hastur is like the bad brother of Cthulhu, just as Euron is the bad brother in this family. So the storm god wars against the drowned god. Hastur wars against Cthulhu. Euron wars against essentially his entire family. And that's why we get lines like, I am the storm, the first and last. Do I control the winds? It's all storm god motifs that are being applied here to Euron.
I love that one. Do I control the wind? It's like Euron playing dumb. He's such a perfect troll. He's the best. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and everything that is applied here also being applied to seafaring. Like I said, Aldebaran follows the Pleiades, which in real life was very important to sailors. Following the Pleiades was a way of star navigating, and it could make or break a voyage. So Euron's George is playing with all of this stuff. He's mixing the Lovecraftian stuff with real life mythology and real world history. So that's the Elder Gods. Next would be the Night Gaunts, which were what you had up before. They are a cross between humans and dragons. They have sleek black bodies. They have 2 arms and legs. They have 2 horns. It resembles a demon's horn. Yeah, that's it. And they are very cunning and intelligent, like humans. So it is in the story, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, which I actually covered on my own channel. Go check out Stream Quest, where I broke down the story of Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and how George is playing off a lot of it. Now, Dream Quest is pretty different from a Lovecraft story. It's Lovecraft at its most whimsical. It's like a dark version of Alice in Wonderland, the way Dream Quest reads. But all of these dragonic creatures appear here, and what's important about the Night Gaunts is they fly the main character, Randolph Carter. They take him over the plateau of Leng, through the Cold Waste, and they drop him off just outside the gates of Kadath. In Lovecraft, Kadath is like this glittering city of the gods. George does tongue-in-cheek references to that. He has his own Kadath. He spells it a little differently, and he puts it in the Grey Waste. But for the purpose of the story, the actual Kadath stand-in would be Valyria, the Valyria of old, the actual freehold. And so the Night Gaunts are the Dragon Lords, the human dragons. So the Night Gaunts take Randolph Carter to the city of the gods. Valyria, this city ruled by Valyrian Dragon Lords, people who were looked at as gods among men by non-Valyrians. The Targaryens, they are symbolic Night Gaunts. And then we break that down further with the next
real
two.
quick, Tim, do the Night Gaunts have some tie to the moon?
Oh yeah,
Can they fly to the moon? I know the cats of Ulthar can leap to the moon.
Yeah, the cats of Ulthar can. The Byakhee can, which I'll get into.
Okay, no worries. I just noticed the moon in the background of the art. It's probably just stylistic. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so next are the Shantoks. They're the least important to this, but I just still mention them. The Shantoks are a cross between dragons and horses. They apply less to Euron. They're more important for the Dothraki stallion that mounts the world mythos, because Drogon might be the stallion, so that would be a dragon standing in for a horse. It also applies to Bittersteel. Bittersteel in the real world myth, Bittersteel is a Pegasus, but in the Lovecraft sense, he's a Shantok. He's a Targaryen and a Bracken. He takes his personal sigil. I've said many times, the sigils tell a story all their own. His personal sigil is the Bracken horse. He threw dragon wings on it. So Bittersteel is a symbolic Shantok, and so is Drogon in the stallion that mounts the world prophecy. But what is important to Euron is the last one, and this is the one that has definitely.
Now, how do you say this?
Byakhee.
Now this art right here, this is the King in Yellow, right?
Yep, that's the King in Yellow. That's a version of him when he's not. Obviously, he's taken off the yellow robes, and it's an artistic rendition of what he would look like underneath. And
it's very God Emperor Dune as a worm, isn't it? But yeah, it's the Byakhee. Yeah. Okay, Byakhee.
Yeah, and I also like that one because that chair, the one before with that chair he's in, it reminds. Yeah, it's almost like you could see that and apply that picture of Euron sitting in the sea stone chair, and it looks similar. It's also got that, it's like a big hand. It's got that Fist of the First Men style to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sure does.
It's like you could lay one over the other.
Cool. But the Byakhee, go ahead.
Yeah, the Byakhee. And here I have a quote. This is from the Lovecraft story called The Festival. There flapped rhythmically a horde of tame, trained, hybrid, winged things. Not altogether crows, nor buzzards, nor decomposed human beings, but something I cannot and must not recall. And this is because the Byakhee represent dead dragons. And you can see from the artwork there, like you take a dragon, like the dragon skeleton that I have here, you apply just the thinnest amount of flesh and musculature, and you basically get a Byakhee. Yep, they are essentially dead dragons. But they also have the beaks of carrion birds. That's why we get the crows and buzzards. Now, I said, just as Bittersteel is a symbolic Shantok, Bloodraven is a symbolic Byakhee. Blackwood and Targaryen, crows and dragons. And he is also a dead man. He is being propped up on life support by the weirwoods. So,
hold on. His appearance though, like matches this. So I've got the art. let's see, where's Blood? Where is he? Where's that three-eyed? There he is. Literally skin stretched over bone in exactly the way that you're saying. And Bloodraven, both a crow and a dragon. So it's just like
he's a Bayaki. Yeah, he's a Bayaki. That's why I said, like, George, he layers it. He will layer real world myth with Lovecraft and just pack it on together and just make this huge double decker sandwich. That's how we get characters like this. So the Bayaki represent dead dragons, and they're also carrion feeders like crows and buzzards. And what's great about the Bayaki is that they are capable of interstellar space travel. The Bayaki can fly to the moon. As dead dragons, they can survive in space. And if a rider were to mount a Bayaki, if the rider could somehow make it so that they themselves could survive the perils of space, they can ride the Bayaki into space like a spaceship. Now you apply this to a Song of Ice and Fire, because obviously this is a fantasy story with Lovecraft elements. We're not going to have anyone actually flying to the moon, but we can apply it to things like traversing the River of Time, traversing the Weirwood Net, riding a dead dragon through these. Bloodraven's already set that up in spades as the dead dragon connected to the Weirwood Net.
Right, and this gets back to the Norse thing where, of course, Odin, through his connection to Yggdrasil, can traverse the 9 realms, and that's why it's his horse. And it's parallel concept, he has Sleipnir, an 8-legged horse that traverses the 9 realms. And so, you can see the overlap here, the convergence of ideas that this is, again, where George thrives. He sees these convergences. And so Bloodraven is like Odin, clearly. He's hung on his tree down in the roots instead of up in the branches, but everything else is essentially the same. But he's also this Bayaki. And we see that these magic trees like Yggdrasil or the Weirwood can be used to traverse the realms. The Bayaki can too. So it makes for a very nice correlation.
And just like that, what lies at the root underneath Yggdrasil, tied up in its roots, is a dragon gnawing on the roots. So Bloodraven fits the whole aspect of it.
Yeah, and that would be, we're going to talk about that more in a bit, but that would be the Nidhogg or Nidhogger dragon. Yeah. And there are also more serpents too. That's the only one with a name, but it says a different part there's just more snakes than you can count down there among the roots. And then also Loki is trapped beneath the roots, and there's a serpent dripping venom on his head. Somebody is catching it with a bowl, but lots of snakes under there. And so not only Bloodraven under the Weirwood, but the roots described like serpents when Bran sees them. So it's literally like a nest of serpents and grave worms down there. So dead dragons, dead serpents, that's what's under all this stuff. It's all the same. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like I said, so the Bayaki can travel space, and if the rider can somehow protect themselves, they can ride through space too. What's great about this is, but it's also not just traversing the Weirwood Net, but it's also applies to someone like Cold Hands, right? If we were to, like George has said in the Winds of Winter, we're going to go further north than we've ever been before. Well, they get to a place like the Lands of Always Winter. The perfect person to navigate that would be a dead man like Cold Hands. And in order to ride the Bayaki, the rider must drink the substance called, it goes by the name of Space Mead. Its proper name is the Golden Mead. The Bayaki can be summoned by anyone who possesses the correct knowledge in doing it. So think Dragonbinder. In order to summon a Bayaki, it is necessary to imbibe a small amount of a golden substance dubbed Space Mead and recite the following incantation. Ia, Ia, Hastor, Hastor, Savak, Volgaltham, Volgaltham, I, Hastor. Now, we're not going to get that as Song of Ice and Fire, but I think, though, summoning a dragon, Dragonbinder, and Dragonbinder has runes carved into it that Makoro at least partially translates some for Victarion. So that would be like the incantation.
Yeah, that really feels similar. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing about Space Mead is, so the quote here, the golden mead of the elder gods renders the drinker insensible to the effects of time and space, so that he may travel in these dimensions. Moreover, it heightens his sensory perceptions so that he remains constantly in a state bordering upon dream. That is from the Solano fragments. So you can consume golden mead, and it will separate the consciousness from the body. You are kept in a state of suspended animation while your consciousness is free to travel through space by means of astral projection. This sounds exactly like Bran going through the Weirwood net and checking out the past. And it's necessary to drink to ride the Byakhee, because the space mead will make you immune to the effects of exposure to the vacuums of space. The drinker need not eat, sleep, or breathe during the period of the space mead's effect. So it essentially makes you like cold hands. You don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep, you don't need to breathe. You can fly through space, you can navigate the lands of always winter. It's more of this dead man symbology, and we can apply that to Jon and to Euron. What makes the dead dragon and the dead man thing so important here is because of what it allows you to do, the hostile conditions that you would be able to survive in.
And so to bring this back to shamanism, the shaman is regarded as half dead when he goes into the trance because they're journeying into the realm of the dead. It's in order to do this, you have to put one foot in the realm of the dead. And it's a super gnarly concept. It really appeals to George. Like, what do you have to do to use magic? It's more than just like, oh, it has a heavy cost. Like, you have to change yourself completely in order to function as a vessel for sorcery. I don't know what a vesicle is. It sounds naughty, but
But George
you have
has
to see your
essentially
doctor if you have those.
George has essentially given us two versions of his space mead through Weirwood Paste and through Shade of the Evening.
Right.
And like I said, you in order to ride the Byakhee without it like throwing you off of its back, you need to drink the space mead. Bran's been so one thing that I've been thinking about when applying to this is the idea of Euron stealing a dragon, but we've talked about like non-Valyrians, the idea of non-Valyrians riding dragons, whether that be Bran or whether that be Euron, because it definitely applies to Jon. Jon's a Targaryen. Like, we're not going to question it so much if he rides a dragon. But Euron or Bran doing it sort of breaks the established rules, at least as far as we know. Now, we can say it's sorcery, but here in Lovecraft, anyone can ride the Byakhee if they drink the space mead as a precursor. So if George wanted to play with the idea of Euron claiming a dragon without anyone questioning it, and not just being like, oh, it's just magic, a wizard, and not just writing it off as a wizard did it, him drinking Shade of the Evening and it having the same properties as space mead sets precedent for this, for how Euron can control a dragon, not just solely through magic.
That's interesting. I definitely think it'll be about the horns, you know, as far as like the way that Euron can ride a dragon without being a Valyrian. I think that is what Dragonbinder is for. I think when it says the Valyrians use Dragonbinder or sorceress horns to control their dragons, I don't think they used them to like give them moment-to-moment directions. I think the Dragonbinder horns are used in a magic ritual to create the bond that allows the Valyrians to bond with, to control the dragons. So I think that Euron is going to use the horn. Ultimately, Victarion will be sacrificed, and that will create a blood tie between Victarion's blood, his family, and that Dragonbinder, and that will enable Euron to use it and claim a dragon. And that is why he has the horn, is because he needs it in order to become a dragon rider. I've never thought about Shade of the Evening as playing a part in enabling that. Because as you're pointing out, the space mead has parallels to both the horn and the shade of the evening. So perhaps it's more about the horn parallel with the inscription and all that.
But until I started reading more of these stories and more of the expanded mythos and got to the space mead, and then once I came across the space mead and the Byakhee application, then it's like, oh wait, okay, now I see what you did, George.
The psychedelic substance version of space mead and ice and fire lets you traverse like the astral realm. Mm-hmm. It lets you fly in space, where the horn lets you fly on the dragon, I think, but.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying it sets precedent. So the idea of Euron claiming a dragon and it being an ice dragon, it being Viserion, I think applies here because of the Byakhee, because of the dead dragon symbolism, and because of the space mead, shade of the evening, weirwood paste connections. Euron is the quintessential Lovecraft character, and for him to be the third act villain, him stealing a dragon makes the most sense. But we said George always builds on some kind of precedent, if not one that he himself established, then one that he drew from the writers that influenced him. And here we see that connection in Lovecraft, in Derleth, in Lynn Carter, in L. Sprague, and all these other guys who have expanded the mythos that George has all read.
So here's where I bring up Dany's vision, which everyone thinks applies to Fagon and John Connington. From a smoking tower, a great stone beast took wing, breathing shadow fire.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like a dead dragon. First of all, dragons are stone beasts. They hatch from stone eggs. But if Viserion becomes dead somehow under Euron's control, that could make it even more so to be the case. But the smoking tower and the shadow fire, like the dark fire, obviously it could just be black fire reference. But this just sounds like Euron's apocalyptic mounting of a dragon at the time when the long night falls. To me, I think that's what that line refers to. Myself. Yeah. And all this dead dragon stuff really just makes me think that even more. So I don't know if Viserion is like how he'll become a dead dragon, or if that's more of just a symbolism thing.
Yeah, because I don't think it's necessary for Viserion to die. I don't think it's necessary for them to do what the show did. I think he has enough ice dragon symbolism already. Plus, he's named for Viserion. So again, Euron is the bad brother. Well, Viserion named for Viserys, even though, I mean, Dany is giving homage to her brother, but we got to also remember Viserys was the bad brother. He had his moments of being nice and taking care of her, but for the time that we saw him, it was we never really got to see those gentler moments. The Viserys we're presented with in the story is more often than not the sadistic brother, more of the bad brother.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, there's all of the symbolism around Viserion is ice dragon symbolism. So he could literally become whited or icified, or it could just be the symbolism that he has. But let me tell you a little story about Oldtown and Leighton Hightower. So I got some news for you. Something hit me between the eyes when I was working on my Oldtown script. And I'll have to see what Tim thinks about this idea, but it occurs to me that Lord Leighton is not going to fight Euron. And that's also never what the Hightowers do. So let me just put in a piece of this art here so I can set the mood properly. Beautiful. Again, artist Chetan Biswas knocking it out of the park with our creepy Hightower. So look, the Hightowers, they do not fight conquerors. They do not. They co-opt. They do it every time. They did it with the Andals. They did it with the First Men. They did it with the Targaryens. And when I say they did it with the First Men, I mean that, like, Oldtown was originally settled by seafarers from somewhere else who then intermingled with the First Men, and the Hightowers became a First Men house, but they're from somewhere else. More obviously, when the Andals came, there was no battles there because they opened their gates and they married instead, and they built a nice big sept, the biggest one in Oldtown. It was like, oh no, build your church right here so we can keep an eye on you, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's co-opting. Then they did it with the Targaryens. And listen, look at this pattern, Tim. So Aegon the Conqueror shows up. Manfred Hightower opens the gates to him. And they were worried that he would burn the city. So instead they surrender. Okay, and then Aegon is crowned by the High Septon. And I have that artwork right here. Okay, then we have this fellow called Maegor the Cruel. And him and Visenya, they wanted to make Oldtown another Harrenhal. And that's a Grand Maester, that headless body behind him. This is Maegor's coronation. Maegor killed 3 different maesters, 3 different Grand Maesters. Okay, they also replaced the High Septon, if you will. And so Martin Hightower, he opened the gates to Maegor and Visenya so that they would not make it a new Harrenhal. And they replaced the High Septon overnight with the Patsy, and he crowned Maegor in Oldtown. Okay. So then Jaehaerys comes there, and once again, they're worried because this is on the heels of the War with the Faith. And it says, the unexpected arrival of Vermithor. Let me get this art here. No, not that one. Where is... Hang on. There it is. It's in the wrong place. The unexpected arrival of Vermithor and Silverwing at Oldtown brought thousands to the streets to point and stare. No word of their coming had been sent ahead, and there were many in the city who were frightened, wondering what this might portend. None, mayhaps, more than Septon Matthias, who turned pale when he was told. Jaehaerys brought down Vermithor on the wide marble plaza outside the Starry Sept. Gotta like that. Landing in front of the Starry Sept, okay? Mm-hmm. A temple of starry wisdom, if there ever was one. But it was his queen who made the city gasp when Silverwing alighted atop the high tower itself, beating of her wings, fanning the flames of its famous beacon. So this is a major foreshadowing for an ice dragon, coated dragon, to land atop the high tower. And will Dany be on top of it? I don't know. Will there be someone on top of it? I don't know. But yes, this just jumps out at you when it comes down to thinking about precedents for what Euron's going to do at the top of the high tower. And so, as you can see, 3 Targaryen kings in a row come to Oldtown. And instead of fighting, the high towers open the gates to them. So Euron, not a Targaryen, but dressing up like a Valyrian, potentially calling a dragon to Oldtown. Yeah, I got news for you guys. They're not going to fight. They are not going to fight. And the glass candles are a big part of this. This is all a big Lord of the Rings parallel. So we figured out that Leighton's got to have a glass candle. That's the only way you wouldn't come down for 10 years. Otherwise, you're just trusting your servants to tell you the truth of what's going on. Mm-hmm. That's not reliable. Like, having a glass candle would explain it. And Oldtown has glass candles, so how would Leighton not have one? That line about being able to see to the wall, I've got it. Where is it? It's all the way down here, sorry. And beyond where the honey wine widened into whispering sound, rose the high tower. This one. Its beacon fires bright against the dawn. From where it stood atop the bluffs of Battle Isle, its shadow cut the city like a sword, Those born and raised in Oldtown could tell the time of day by where that shadow fell. Some claimed a man could see all the way to the wall from the top. Perhaps that was why Lord Leighton had not made the descent in more than a decade, preferring to rule the city from the clouds. So the ideas are linked. Not only the shadow sword idea that sounds like a glass candle or describes the tower as a black sword, basically, which is what a glass candle looks like. Then he says, you can see all the way to the wall. The only way that you could see to the wall from the top of the tower is with a glass candle. And then he says maybe that's why he doesn't come down. So that's why I was linking those ideas. Like, he doesn't come down because he can use the glass candle. And here's the thing. Glass candles are like palantirs. And we know with the palantirs, Saruman is corrupted by Sauron through the palantir. He uses the palantir, and this establishes a link between him and Sauron. He thinks he can confront Sauron, but he couldn't. He couldn't resist him. It's too overwhelming. And so when Gandalf pulls the cloak off and he touches Saruman's palantir, he sees the eye, and he's like, "Oh, you've been talking to Sauron." And then Saruman starts preaching. He's like, "Yeah, none can defy him. He's too strong, blah, blah, blah." So look, Euron is Sauron. He has the eye of Sauron as his sigil. He is the human incarnation of Sauron. And Sauron was, of course, a man, kind of. At least he took a human form. I guess that's maybe the better way to say it. He's a Maiar or whatever. But he took human form. He had a corporeal form for a while. So Sauron, he corrupted Saruman through the Palantir. I'm saying that if Leighton has been using the glass candle, then Euron has been corrupting him and getting in touch with him through that. They both might belong to the cult of starry wisdom, flat out. I just want to say that. It might be even more direct a connection, like they both are at the same cult meetings, which you attend via glass candle, okay?
Are you saying that Euron has been cyberbullying Leighton Hightower?
Possibly. Cyberbullying. Kind of, Tim, yeah. Don't do cyberbullying. It's bad. So, yes, so this is what I think. I think that all of this about Leighton preparing a defense of Oldtown, no, he's not going to. He's gonna open the gates. He's gonna do what they always do. He's gonna open the gates. The High Septon will crown Euron at Oldtown. Lord Leighton will be right there. Maybe he'll be the one to crown him, or maybe he'll just preside over the ceremony. He'll be there, though. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is an inside job. So when it says Lord Leighton might summon an army from the deeps, yeah, he might, to help Euron.
Yeah.
And how does Melora the Mad Maid become Euron's Hands of White Fire Lady? Well, because they're in on it. They're in on it. Like, she is Euron's bride. She might be waiting for him. Like, sweet, Euron's here. Let's get married. Yeah. So, what do you think of that, Tim?
Yeah. So, like you said, yeah, the Hightowers have always been opportunists. They waved the white flag right away for Aegon the Conqueror. They did the same thing to the Andals. The Blackfire rebellions. They keep a foot in each camp because they said, like, Redgrass Field could have gone either way. The only time the Hightowers ever really take the fight to others is during the dance, because a Hightower is queen and their boy Aegon II is half Hightower. Like, they got, at that point, they had more skin in the game than they ever did at any other point, which is the only time that they ever really take the offensive. Otherwise, they've always been fence sitters, waiting to see what goes on and then immediately cowtailing and submitting to whoever won. That's always been their game. So yeah, so Leighton opening the doors and essentially handing the keys to Euron, I could see happening, even if it's just to save his own ass.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much precedent for it. It's like it happens over and over. All you need to do is understand that Euron is likely to be in the image of a Targaryen dragon king. That's the disconnect. It's like you don't see Euron as continuing the precedent because he's not a Targaryen, but he's dressing up like a Valyrian, and he's quite possibly going to gain his dragon at Oldtown. I'm getting so tongue-tied today.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
So that goes back to, so the thing about the Byakhee, right, is after the incantation is made, the whole Ia Hastor, it says, due to their natural, this is from the Keeper of the Key, so that's the precedent side for this. Due to their natural immunity to the laws of time and space, the Byakhee will hear the summoner wherever and whenever he might be. So the idea is, if when Dragonbinder is blown, will a dragon immediately fly to Euron, even though Euron's in Oldtown and the dragons are all the way over in Meereen? That seems like quite a distance. Using the Byakhee as the basis for this, the answer to that would be yes. When Dragonbinder is blown, the dragon that will hear it, presumably Viserion, will know to fly to Oldtown, even though they are miles and miles and miles apart.
Yeah, so, if the right circumstances are met, then yes, it can definitely, that can happen. I think that we're going to see Victarion die. He's got to blow the horn and die, and then Euron will be able to claim the dragon with it. I believe that is what's going to happen. So
it's been calling to him too, like that. Even though he knows that if he blows it, now there is some that say like maybe Victarion's nifty fire hand will actually make him immune to it, and his lungs won't burn to a crisp if he blows it. But he's definitely going to blow it. Like it's been calling to him. It's like.
He wants to.
I know George loves horror. It's like, for those who've seen Jason Goes to Hell, when the heart, and they consume the heart. It's like, it's calling out to him, like, do it. You know you want to. So he has to.
And then, so there was 3 times Oldtown was attacked, that they didn't just open the gates. And these are by people who just kind of wanted to sack the city. So there was Samwell Dane, the Starfire, Corrid the Cruel, who is he's an Ironborn. What house is he in? Was he a Greyjoy?
Who?
Corrid the Cruel.
Corrid the Cruel. Let's look him up. Sounds Ironborn.
Oh, he is an Ironborn. I'm just saying, is he Greyjoy? He might have been House Whore.
So many names they make your. Corrid the Cruel, let's see, was House Grey Iron.
Grey Iron.
Oh,
okay.
While he is usually associated with House Whore, some accounts state that he was actually of House Greyard or House Blacktie. Oh, so he's like one of those. It's so far in the past they don't even know exactly.
Okay. So Samwell Dane, Corrid the Cruel, and Giles Gardner the Woe, who reportedly sold 3/4 of the city's inhabitants into slavery, but was unable to breach the defenses of the Hightower on Battle Isle, because, like I said, you can't. So, interesting thing about these 3 characters is they're all Azor Ahai parallels. So Samwell Dane is obvious. He's a Dane, and he's called the Starfire. So, the power of stars, meteors, meteor fire, the Danes, that's what's attacking Oldtown. So that's the original Bloodstone Emperor parallel. Corrid the Cruel and his Iron Men. Of course, we know the Ironborn also come from the Great Empire of the Dawn. It seems, some of them anyway. And the whole idea of Azor Ahai attacking at Battle Isle is that he is a pirate lord. He's coming over the sea with a fleet. And that's what Euron is doing. Again, he's echoing that by attacking Oldtown with a fleet, and so did Corrid the Cruel. Giles Gardner, he is an evil gardener. So that's basically like an evil green man. And a lot of Azor Ahai figures are like that. We've seen that with Renly and Stannis and other figures. And that's, I guess, even the King in Yellow is kind of like a horned dragon evil figure. But it's like the Baphomet version of a green man. And so, yeah, these are the people that have attacked Oldtown, and then Euron is about to attack Oldtown. So this is all Azor Ahai parallel stuff, layers and layers of it. And Euron also likes to sell people into slavery.
Yeah. Oh,
So.
Yeah. Oh, people are asking, like, how long... So Euron has been... It's been 3 years that Euron has been gone. His exile was, for our wording, Victarion's salt wife, and then Victarion then beats her to death in this honor killing. That's when that's when Euron is banished, and the last thing Victarion remembers is Euron just laughing about it as he sailed away. But yeah, it's been 3 years that he's been gone, and we don't know what he's been up to these 3 years out at sea.
Well, he's been Urathon Nightwalker in Karth. That's what he's
presumably. But yeah, what makes the whole thing about him being a storm god, because it's said like to sail to Illyrio drops a line where when Tyrion questions him, like, well, aren't the crew of that ship gonna speak? And he's like, well, that ship's bound for Ashai. They're gonna be gone for 2 years. And that's sailing from Pentos. So we're given this idea that sailing from Westeros to Ashai should take at minimum 2.5 years. Yet Euron's only been gone for 3, and he's claiming to have been to all these places. So him being the storm god, controlling the winds, the way he's able to just fast travel, definitely lends credence to that.
I mean, honestly, that would be such an advantage as a sea captain or a pirate to be able to get any sort of wind when you need it. So that's, yeah. So we're going to come back to the King of Harrenhal thing in a minute, because I didn't finish my notes. I was doing those notes at 2:57 today. And then I was like, oh, what time is it? And then I was like, oh, I didn't set up. Anyway, we'll come back to that. We talked about that a little bit in the Harrenhal live stream. The thing I really want to get to is the Bran parallels. And this is going to take us through some of the stuff that we've been teasing earlier with Yggdrasil and the Nine Realms. But yeah, this is really, the more I look at this, the more certain I am that Euron is a failed Bloodraven pupil, and that warlocks are kind of the arch opposite of a Green Seer. They are very similar. They're a Green Seer of another variety, if you will. And yeah, the parallels between Euron and Bran are pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea that Euron is a failed student of Bloodraven, because Euron has the dream. When Euron is talking to Victarion, and he says, like, once I dreamt that I could fly. The next morning, I asked the Maester. Bran does the same thing. After he has his flying dream, he goes and he asks his Maester about it. So it seems like a precedent has been set that Euron may have had the same falling dream. There could have been probably was a crow with all this crow stuff that he has going on, saying like, well, you need to fly. And your child Euron might have had the same things that Bran was doing, like, but I can't fly. And he's like, and the crow saying, well, you must fly or die. And then Euron wakes up. And we talked about Cthulhu and dream manipulation, the Ironborn, Cthulhu, Drown God. So he's already from a culture that's praying to Cthulhu. So dream manipulation is set up right there too as well. And with Bloodraven being a dead dragon, it really just seems like, yeah, that Euron was contacted. And for whatever reason, that connection was severed. Now, this could be because Bloodraven saw Euron for what he really was and decided, like, no, I can't let him have it. That this is an Anakin in the making. He's going to go Sith. Or it could be because the Iron Islands don't have weirwoods, which we've talked about a lot. The Iron Islands, for a place that doesn't have weirwoods, has so much weirwood imagery, but not having access to like a weirwood with a root network may have cut him off. It could go either or. But yeah, definitely. But something definitely awakened Euron in his dreams that made him see the other side. And now it's like, well, there's no going back. I saw that there's more out there.
Yeah, because otherwise, like, how did he get on to all this crazy ass stuff, like, at such an early age? Like, he's clearly, like, when we meet him here, he's like neck deep in it. Like, he's already committed his whole life to all this weird stuff. Like, he sailed away years ago and started on this whole journey. So yeah, what was the impetus for this? Some sort of visions or dreams is the obvious answer. So if it wasn't Bloodraven, then it was, the Great Other or something playing a similar role that the Three-Eyed Crow played with Bran. But something definitely contacted him in dreams and started this off, and he's using the same language. As you said, perhaps we can fly. Perhaps we can fly, all of us. How will we ever know unless we leap from some tall tower? No man ever truly knows what he can do unless he dares to leap. So talking about a tall tower, talking about flying, flying and falling, like this is... So the Hightower is a weirwood. I should make that clear. Its symbolism is that of a weirwood. It's the white trunk. It's got a crown of red flame. The weirwoods are crowned with red leaves that are also described as a blaze of flame at Winterfell. And so the Hightower, and then of course the Hightower, it functions as a sight enhancer, especially with a glass candle at the top. So you climb the tower, you climb the tree, you can see everywhere. Same idea. And then similarly, there's always a dragon thing under the tree, because under Yggdrasil there's snakes and dragons. So under the Hightower, what do we have? A black fused stone dragon fortress built by dragon lords, where dragons used to roost on it. So it's same idea. And not only that, the Hightower has a maze. There's a dragon maze at the bottom of it. What's at the bottom of weirwoods? Caves. Cave mazes, underworld mazes, same thing. Winterfell has got the crypts, so it's this repeating pattern the Hightower fits into very well. So I'm calling the section Bran's Towers. Bran has 3 towers that he does magic stuff at that foreshadow his tree tower, which is his 4th tower. And so the tower is always the place where this stuff happens, and the Hightower is going to be Euron's tower. And all this stuff will be parallel. So we're going to go through real quickly Bran's towers, but we're going to think about Euron while we do it. So this is some of the stuff from my King Bran essay, but we're going to repackage it in Euron wrapping because it makes it different. And this is going to be interesting. So check this out. It's Winterfell, Queen's Crown, and the Night Fort. They are all towers. Winterfell and Queen's Crown are literally towers. The Night Fort has a well that goes down. So the Night Fort Castle is the top of the well, and the Weirwood Tunnel and the Black Gate is the bottom, so bottom of the tower, essentially. So here's the thing. Alysanne visited all of the places where Bran has tower experiences. Winterfell, Queen's Crown, and the Night Fort. Alysanne visited all of them with her ice dragon, Silverwing. She also landed atop the Hightower, as we just heard, which is Euron's tower. So George has used Alysanne and Silverwing as a ice dragon symbol to connect Bran and Euron's tower scenes. Are you getting the picture, guys? Okay, yeah. Tim's nodding, so I'm making sense. We'll come back to Waymar and no, we'll talk about this now. So Waymar and Aemond tie into this. We all know that they are also Euron parallels. They all have one blue eye. They're all missing an eye. That's the obvious thing, okay? Mm-hmm. The eye is important because, as Tim said earlier, this is an Othin thing. Othin trades one of his eyes to drink from the Well of Mimir, and the Well of Mimir gives him magical knowledge and power of some specific type. I forget what. I'm sorry to be general, but that's the point. You trade your eye, you drink from the well, you gain magical knowledge and sight. Okay, it's similar to Othin also being hung on Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights, which allows him to see the runes and seize them up. That gives him all kinds of magic power because the runes are a magical language, and that enables him to do all these different things. And this complements the idea that Yggdrasil is the cosmic tree that connects the 9 realms, and that Othin, who is the master of this tree, can traverse the realms. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, all these, whenever you see the one-eyed characters, they're either a literal wizard or a symbolic wizard. Waymar loses his eye when he becomes a magical being. He becomes the first ice white that we see on the screen. And symbolically, he's becoming a Night's King because he's got one pierced eye and one blue magical eye. Even more, the broken sword of Waymar, and actually I've got Waymar art. Go away, Oldtown art. We're going.
Oh, I'm not sure if you have this, but I can throw out an even more obscure one that George used to set precedent.
Which one is that?
Axe Isle, a black stone fortress built by a Carthene pirate. Euron on the Hightower, the Black Fortress. He is a pirate, and he has an alias in Karth.
Nice. Say that one more time. I'm sorry. I was pulling up the art.
So, yeah, Axe Isle. Yeah, one of the islands, the Basilisk Islands, has a black stone fortress on it that was built by a Carthene pirate. Euron, a pirate on a black stone fortress ascending the Hightower, and he has an alias in Karth. It was probably Karth. Karth is probably where he was coming from. It was probably also the last place he was before he returned to the Iron Islands.
Right. He is a Carthene pirate in that sense. Yes. Okay. That's perfect. That's very cool. Love that. The best. So Waymar, he loses his eye. He gains this magical life. The sword, the broken sword is described as being like a tree, twisted like a tree struck by lightning. So all of Bran's tower events have lightning involved because of the tarot card, which we're going to talk about in a second. And so here we have Waymar, his one-eye magic experience also tied to lightning because of the tree. And then this all happened, like the sword broke when his eye was transformed. So you can imagine the lightning striking. He transcends death, becomes this ice wizard. So the parallel to Euron, he's at the top of the tower, is either literal lightning and storm or, magical power coming, or maybe the dragon is like the lightning, one or the other. There's magical power coming to the top of the tower, and that is when Euron transforms and becomes even more of a wizard than he is now, or whatever. And then Aemond, he is also similarly a one-eyed ice Odin figure. He specifically lost his eye when he gained Vhagar. Shout out to Nana Vhagar. And so...
yeah, lost an eye, gained a dragon. It's a fair trade.
Right. And this is darkly green. This is obviously not show Aemond. This is the older book Aemond concept. And this one is by DLS Straws. It's got all the important symbolism here. So he is an ice... he's got that ice wizard symbol. Literally the star sapphire. So like the others have blue star eyes. So it's really pouring on the other magic one-eye energy. He wears midnight black armor chased with gold. So you got the king in yellow, black and gold symbol, just like Euron and the Baratheons. Also the midnight black of Euron. And then he rides Vhagar, who is a symbolic ice dragon. For several reasons. There's a star called Vega in Lyra. Lyra is the lyre. So think of Rhaegar's harp and Lyanna. It's named after Lyanna, Lyra, but it is a harp, and that's what Rhaegar played for Lyanna. The thing is, Vega used to be the pole star, and in A Song of Ice and Fire, the pole star is called the Eye of the Ice Dragon. So you have this star, Vega. That's the name Vhagar comes from. She's named after the ice dragon, basically. Right next to Vega and Lyra is Draco. There's a dragon constellation that wraps around the current pole star, but which also used to contain, because the pole star location moves. That's the thing. So different stars become the pole star for periods of time. So it used to be Vega, it used to be one in Draco, and it's all in the same little neighborhood here. So this is the ice dragon part of the sky. George pulled a bunch of winter symbolism from it. Rhaegar's harp, Lyanna's name, the ice dragon, etc. So Vhagar is named after Vega. And Visenya is a Knight's Queen figure. Visenya's Hill, full of ice symbolism, the Sept of Baelor, blah, 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 blah. So Visenya, Vhagar, Viserys, Viserion, all ice dragon symbols. Even Viserys, his crown of molten gold Viserion is white and cream and gold, and we see all this other gold stuff with Euron as well. So it's all matches pretty well. I definitely think Viserion is the dragon Euron's going to get. And Aemond has Vhagar. So now, Aemond, the big parallel for Aemond and Euron is the dragon fight over the God's Eye. Not just the dragon fight, but the idea that Aemond went into the God's Eye Lake. This is his final resting place in the sea, dead, strapped to his ice dragon. This is a picture of Azor Ahai in the Weirwood Net. He is waiting to be reborn. He's in the Green Sea. He is dead. He rode his ice dragon into the Weirwood Net Sea, and he is waiting. He is under there. So that's why I love this picture. This is Sam Hogg, and this is Aemond, chained to his saddle with Dark Sister through his eye. Dark Sister being representative of the Moon Meteor here. So Azor Ahai taking Moon Meteor, Blackstone magic, taking it into the Weirwood Net, corrupting it. This is his final resting place. But he's coming back. And all of these tower symbols, all of these tower scenes have hints about a beast being born from the graves. So we think of Euron's god being born from the graves in charnel pits. He's going to wake something. And I don't think it's just the dragon. It might be Kraken. It might be spirits, something. But we're going to work on this as we go through. So Tim, feel free to interrupt and cut in as often as you like here. And we're going to do Bran's towers. And yeah, you're going to see they've all got a pattern to them.
Okay.
No, they recovered Dark Sister.
Yeah,
but they had to send an Aquarian rescue unit, if you will. They had to send divers down there. They got Vhagar's skull, too. So they got down there, and they got Dark Sister back, and they got Vhagar's skull. This is honestly something, George Buss, he talks about Aragorn's tax policy. I want to ask George, have you thought about the Targaryen diving, rescue, and recovery unit, and how did they get Vhagar's head off the skull off the bottom of the God's Eye Lake? Because Vhagar's skull is in the Red Keep. So, and Dark Sister. They got it back, man. They dove down there and they got it. The lake must not be that deep. Right?
Yeah, somehow they dredged it to get Dark Sister back.
Yeah, I guess you can dredge the thing up, right? You don't have to necessarily dive down there. It's crazy, though. Come on, George. We need answers. Anyway. So, let's move. Okay, so Winterfell. Did I forget to grab a piece of Winterfell artwork? Whatever. You know what Winterfell looks like. I got Queen's Crown and the Night for it. I forgot Winterfell. Whatever. So Winterfell is like a stone tree that Bran climbs. Oh, I have the perfect art. I'm going to have to find it. Hang on. It is described as a stone tree, and when Bran climbs it, he feels like the lord of the castle in a way that Robb never would. He can see really far. It's not hard to figure out that, this is foreshadowing Bran having a tree that he climbs that makes him feel the lord, that can see really far, etc., etc. I'm gonna find this artwork.
So again, more of this, the sigils tell a story in and of themselves. So Bran describing it as a stone tree. Euron Greyjoy, Euron's father, had 3 wives. The first was a woman of House Stone Tree. Those were the brothers. She's the one who gave birth to the brothers. 2 died in the cradle, but the one got grayscale. So the first brother that Euron kills would be the Stone Tree. And then Euron himself and his full-blood brothers, they are drowned men. Their mother is from House Sunderly, whose sigil is the Drowned Man. So the Drowned Man killed his first murder, first kinslaying, at least, was killing the Stone Tree.
So there's a lot of Stone Tree stuff with the Ironborn, including those specific ties to the Greyjoys. And then, of course, the sigil Stone Tree of that house is a reference to Naga's ribs, which are petrified weirwood stone. So Euron is heavily tied to stone weirwoods, and stone weirwoods are dead weirwoods. So that fits with Shade of the Evening, Euron's corrupted version of everything, Azor Ahai corrupting the weirwood net. But yes, specifically Bran and him have this. And the idea is that the towers are stone trees. The tower and the tree is the same thing. And I didn't pull up my Tower Tarot card. But did I skip? Where did I put that? Where did I put the tarot notes? Sorry, I'm just, maybe it's up at the top. No. Just bear with me, guys. 1 second. Oh, right here. Okay.
The tower. Okay.
It's tripping. Sorry, guys. So I've gone over this before. I'll be very quick, but the tower is an important tarot card. And okay, here's the one I want. So there's a few different versions of it, but it is a tower being struck by lightning. It is a fire. It is usually crumbling at the top, losing its crown, if you will. Sometimes a literal crown is depicted like this. Sometimes it's just the top of the tree. There's usually one or two people leaping from the tower. Okay, that is one version of the card. Here's another version. Okay, it's one person instead of two. This one's already dead down here. See, the top is cracking, the lightning and the fire. Here's another version. That's the same one. Okay, that's the same one. Thing is, sometimes it's a tree, Tim. Because towers and trees, much the same symbol. It's the thing you climb to get to the sky. So here we see the tree version of it. There's no people, but the top of the tree is cracking off. It is on fire. The lightning is striking. So, this is all happening at Winterfell. Not only is there's like, this is just so great. So Bran is climbing at Winterfell. He is climbing. There's the Broken Tower and the Great Keep, which is a tower. The Great Keep is the one where Jaime and Cersei are inside of it, and Bran is hanging from the gargoyle, and he gets thrown out the window. But to get there, you have to climb the Broken Tower. The Broken Tower is broken because it got struck by lightning 100 years ago. Okay? So there's the lightning-blasted tower. Bran is climbing it. He's not flung from that tower, but he's flung from a tower that's right next to it. So Bran falling from the tower is the Tower Tarot card. I should say the Tower Tarot card represents sudden dramatic change, usually with a lot of turmoil and disaster and things like this. It's just what it looks like. But there's the hidden lining is that it's a chance for rebirth and resetting and a new life, new birth, new path. And so Bran, thrown from the tower, but then opens his third eye in the vision, wakes up, and now he's on a different life course. So that's perfectly demonstrating what the Tower Tarot card represents. That it's that moment in your life. Mm-hmm. When everything gets lit on fire, but then you go in a different direction. It's a tear down moment that needed to happen. Something like that, okay? So at Winterfell, we've got the lightning struck tower that Bran climbs. Bran is warned against climbing by this lesson that old Nan tells him about the bad little boy who got struck by lightning. He climbed a tower too high, and he got struck by lightning and fell. So Bran's tower climbing is doubly associated with lightning striking at the top. Also, thank you, Carol Funk, Bran likes to climb the Broken Tower. And that's where he was going when he overheard Cersei and Jaime. He wasn't going to the Great Keep. He was trying to get to the Broken Tower. He feeds the crows up there. The rookery is up there. He calls it the Eyrie, actually. And it's interesting because the Eyrie Castle is an ice temple atop a mountain, which is the same mountain, tower, tree, same thing. But yeah, Bran climbs the broken tower. Let me get to the part I'm actually reading here. Winterfell. He climbs the broken tower, and that's where he feeds the crows. So, in his dream, he's climbing the tower, and he's talking to the three-eyed crow. So it's kind of all similar. And then Winterfell, continuing its Weirwood tree symbolism, it has the stone labyrinth at the bottom, just like all the other Weirwood caves, just like the Hightower of Oldtown has the maze. There's also the cold pond in front of the heart tree, which is similar to the lake at Queen's Crown. And there's, of course, water around the Hightower, and there is a well at the bottom of the Night Fort. This is important because Yggdrasil has the wells and the springs at its base. That's the Well of Mimir. It can be considered a spring. It is at the base of one of Yggdrasil's roots, and the Night Fort has this well. So it's all very important. It's a pattern, and that's what Winterfell Pond is. The same thing. It's a spring instead of a well. But yeah, same idea.
So Bran feeding the crows, it's real. Dying would also be a way of feeding the crows. That's why we get the book to A Feast.
Right, and the crows want corn from Bran, which represents his seed and his life, and he has to sacrifice certain parts of his life to become the Green Seer. So yes, same thing. Oh, Maize King, right. Corn King. Maize is in the maize, and maize is in corn. M-A-I-Z-E. So a king of a maize is a corn king. Oh, God. I don't know if somebody's ever pointed that out to me or not, Sean. That's funny. Because the Weirwood Net is the maize. So the Maize King is the Weirwood Net King, who is a corn king. Very funny.
All these layers, George. All these layers.
So, Bran and Winterfell, that's his tower. And as we know, him falling from the tower leads to his Weirwood dream, where he opens his third eye and awakens his vision. Now, interestingly, there's another tarot card referenced when he's hanging from the gargoyle, because then he's becoming the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man is essentially based off of Odin. This is the same idea. He is content to hang upside down from this living wood from a tree. He's gaining knowledge, and he's surrendering, kind of. He's surrendering to everything, and then that's giving him divine insight. There's more to it than that, but it's definitely based on Odin.
Right,
this is Bran.
Yeah,
Outside
so Odin, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, so correct me if I'm wrong. So Odin hangs himself from the tree of Yggdrasil to gain knowledge, right?
Upside down.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is it? Then what does he throw his eye in the Well of Mimir for? What does he gain from that?
A different kind of magical power. He gets the runes hanging on Yggdrasil. The Well of Mimir imparts a different knowledge. You'd have to look it up for the specific answer. I'm sorry, I forget exactly.
Okay.
Infinite knowledge.
But so the idea of Bran being the Hanged Man, but then apply that to Euron and the idea we discussed before, if he plucked out his own eye and put black stone in there, they're both utilizing the two methods of Odin gaining knowledge. One did it one way, and like Euron did it the one way, and Bran did it the other.
Correct, and both Odin myths are getting at the same concept, which is mastering your physical self in order to gain transcendent knowledge. The idea of sacrificing your eye or losing your legs, it's basically saying, I am going to deprioritize things of the physical realm in order to chase after spiritual goals. Something like that. It also has the idea of the sacrifice. Like, you only have so much time on the earth. If you're going to train to be a wizard, you might not get to do other stuff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, now Jaime and Cersei represent the forbidden knowledge at the top of this tree, this knowledge, and they're godlike. They're described as godlike in Bran's dream. And then his fall in his dream becomes merged with his flight and the bad little boy who fell from the tower. So you put it all together and you get lightning striking the tower. in a sort of spiritual sense, and then he's gaining this knowledge. So interestingly, the name Bran, of course, everyone knows in Welsh it means raven, but in Norse, Bran or Brander means burning brand, sword, or burning sword. It's all the same concept. So Bran, he represents the fire of the gods. He is a bearer of Lightbringer himself in the weirwood sense. The idea of like fire of the gods is the overarching category. One version of it is the flaming sword, the Lightbringer stuff. Another version is this burning tree. And of course, a burning tree looks like a sword anyway. So they're overlapping concepts. Both represent divine power. And Bran's name refers to essentially both. Because a burning brand is a burning tree. But the same word means burning sword. The comet is described as a burning brand and also a burning sword. So that's the idea. It's the fire of the gods. So the second Winterfell thing is when it's burned by Ramsay. Let me take this hanged man off of here. When it's burned by Ramsay, they're hiding down in the crypts, right? I'll just leave that one up. So this is when Bran has his first intentional skin changing. He opens his third eye for the first time. He skin changes Summer. The wolves are prowling up above while Bran is down below. That's when they see the Winterfell dragon. And they make enough noise to wake a dragon when they open the door to the crypts. So here's this idea of waking a dragon, a beast being born out of the crypts. Okay? When the tree tower burns, a dragon hatches. It's not a real dragon. It's just flame that looks like it. But this is an important idea. It implies to Jon's rebirth. But in the Euron sense, this is going to be talking about Euron riding a dragon or rebirthing the spirit of Azor Ahai, the original dragon. That's probably the more important idea, actually. So they're making enough noise to wake a dragon when they come out of the crypts when this tower is burned. Euron might burn the high tower or call magical fire to the high tower and then reawaken the spirit of Azor Ahai.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, is this? I don't want to jump ahead, but is this us segueing into the idea of Euron getting possessed? Because I know that's like one of the big questions, Chad.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to jump. I know I have a habit of jumping ahead, and I was trying to
restrain
myself.
No, I appreciate you. Come here, Cleo. So yeah, when I say reawaken the original spirit of Azor Ahai, that he becomes the vessel for it. Yeah, that's the possession.
Yeah.
So Queen's Crown is Bran's second tower, and I have that one. But it's called the Old Tower and not Queen's Crown, and that's why I didn't see it. Here it is. No. Here it is. There we go. This one is by Michael Comark, and you can see them navigating the underwater maze. So again, we've got a body of water at the bottom. We have a maze again. We've got the tower on the island in the middle of the lake. That's evocative of the Isle of Faces as well, which is, full of tree towers there. So all of these places where Bran is having these transcendent experiences of these towers, it makes sense that it parallels the Isle of Faces because that's the home of the weirwood magic, right? So Queen's Crown, like the Tower Tarot card, it has a golden crown at its top. And this was painted there in honor of Alysanne because she visited one time. And this is... No. Here. There you go. This is by Guad. This is Alysanne and Silverwing at Queen's Crown. And so afterward, they painted the top gold in her honor. So just like the tarot card, it's got the gold crown at the top. That's why, we really were sure. Like, once we found the tarot, I was like, yeah, he's definitely using that. George's wife does tarot, by the way, Paris. And George is an old hippie. We all know the tarot. So there's a maze just under the surface of the lake. Bran and company are hiding up top, and Summer is prowling the woods. So similar to how the wolves are prowling the Godswood when Bran was down in the crypts, here again, the wolves are prowling, Summer's out prowling, while Bran is in the tower. Jon, of course, is also outside of Queen's Crown at the village on the shore with the Magnar and his thens. So will you read this quote about the lightning here?
Lightning crashed down from the sky, a searing blue-white bolt that touched the top of the tower and the lake. They could smell the fury of it, and when the thunder came, it seemed to shake the night, and death leapt down amongst them. The lightning flash left Jon night-blind, but he glimpsed the hurtling shadow half a heartbeat before he heard the shriek. The first then died as the old man had, blood gushing from his torn throat. Then the light was gone, and the shape was spinning away, snarling, and another man went down in the dark. There were curses, shouts, howls of pain. Jon saw Big Bully stumble backward, and Big... Does that say Big Boyle? I said Big Bully. I made him Italian. Stumble backward and knock down 3 men behind him. Ghost, he thought for one mad instant. Ghost leapt the wall. Then the lightning turned the night to day, and he saw the wolf standing on Del's chest, blood running black from his jaws. Gray. He's gray.
And then darkness descends with a thunderclap. So the reason why I read this is because this is filling in some of the symbols that aren't here at the tower. So in the scene, first of all, lightning striking the tower. That's cool. So it's just to complete the tarot card thing. And then we notice that when Summer attacks, it's right after the lightning hits the top of the tower. So it's literally like really connecting it. Like the magic comes down to the user at the top of the tree or the tower, and when this fire of the gods comes, that's when the stuff happens. That's when the skin changing happens. I should have mentioned the Grey King myth already, but obviously this is the template for all of this. The Grey King possessed the fire of the gods for mankind when he taunted the storm god, and the storm god struck down with a thunderbolt and set a tree ablaze. The burning tree is the symbol of the weirwood, whose red leaves look like fire, looks like a burning tree that is not consumed, like Moses' burning bush, not consumed, speaks with the voice of God, okay? So the lightning comes down from the gods, creates the weirwood tree or sets it on fire, and then man can possess the fire of the gods, which means the weirwood magic. And so all of these things, again, Waymar's sword, all of these tower experiences, and then coming soon out of the Hightower, there's always the lightning element. It's either literal or it is literal and symbolic, meaning that the real lightning is just making us think about the spiritual lightning that's happening. So we have the lightning strike, and right after we see the skin-changed wolf jump down, and it's death descending among them, darkness descending with a thunderclap. So this just shows you, like, when Euron gains this god power at the tower, he might then possess a beast. Instead of the wolf, he'll possess the dragon. Darkness will fall with the storm. And then Euron will be empowered. He will be the king of Oldtown, to shout out the title of my stream. Okay? So Bran, the thing is, before he skin changes Summer, of course, the first Hodoring happens. This also is tied to the lightning. The lightning is upsetting Hodor. Bran wants to make him be quiet. And so he does the first time that he human possesses Hodor. Mm-hmm. This is going to happen again at the Night Fort. It's going to link this back to this scene. So this is the first Hodoring. Then Bran attacks with Summer. And then Jon is also, interestingly, set free from his bondage with the wildlings. And that represents Jon's otherization. Jon goes north of the wall. He puts on the sheepskin cloak. It makes him look like an other. He joins the wildlings, who are symbolic others in so many chapters, as we've seen. So this is the moment when Jon is freed from others' possession. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, how does this all overlap with Euron and Jon, and both of them being Night's King candidates, the others stealing Jon's body for a while, but then eventually Euron getting possession of them? This could all be connected somehow. Like, when the Night King's spirit, so the whole point of the others possessing Jon's body would be to put the Azor Ahai spirit in it, because the whole premise here is like in Aluki, Azor Ahai, the great other or whatever, he's like Aemond and in Aluki, he's trapped, he's dead, he's inside there. Where's that Aemond picture? He's in there. He needs to be reborn. He needs a body. So they're going to steal Jon's body and put his spirit in there. But if they steal Jon's body back, if Mel and Bran are successful, which they will be, driving that out and getting Jon's body back, where's that spirit going to go? Maybe it flies right to Euron at that point. Or maybe that's how Jon is unpossessed.
Yeah.
Euron calls the spirit to him. I favor the first scenario. I'm just putting this together here. We're just painting with the palettes that we've created.
Yeah. I definitely, not sure about the mechanics of it. Definitely think that Jon will be stolen. He'll be exorcised, brought back to the world of the living, but then that prescience is going to have to go somewhere else, and then that's where Euron comes in, the plan B. Now, one thing I want to bring up. So, the theory that Euron might be a skin changer. Now, again, we don't have any textual proof, and without him as a POV, it's hard to say. But George has established precedent, which is the first time Bran skin changes Hodor. We know that Bran's kind of able to take Hodor over Hodor quite easily, but human skin changing another human is a taboo. And the only other time we see that on page is when Varamir tries it with Thistle. But Thistle is able to fight him off. Now, when Euron is telling the Damp Hair in the Forsaken about killing brothers, the first one was the Stone Tree, so he kills the Stone Tree. The second one is his youngest half-brother named Robin, and he says that Robin was soft-headed, basically saying that Robin had some kind of mental deficiency. And one theory I've seen is that maybe that if Euron is skin-changing people, Robin might have been the one he was doing it to, like his crash test dummy, as no other better way of putting it. I'm not sure about that one, but again, it is precedent about someone who's seen as feeble-minded being skin-changed, whereas Thistle, who had more full cognitive awareness, was able to fight Varamir off. Euron, though, it would play into Euron, though, as an abuser. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be a skin changer. He could have just been abusing Robin in other ways, the way he abused the rest of his brothers. But the idea of skin changing another person it's the abuse theme that is the more important part. Overpowering someone, and Euron being Ironborn, R-wording his brothers, doing that to other people.
I see.
That's the big theme. So,
right, Bran's not going to do anything so sinister, and obviously the Hodor thing would be more sinister if he was older. And he's obviously aware that it's wrong, but doesn't have the same appreciation for the gravity of what he's doing as an adult would, obviously. So that's how it squeaks by, and Bran maintains some amount of innocence as opposed to Euron. But yes, you're right. He is R-wording Hodor in a psychic way. That is very true. Everyone knows that. So that's a parallel right there. Now, look, as far as Euron being an actual skin changer, this is why I want to emphasize that this parallel with Bran does not mean that he has to have been contacted by a Bloodraven. It's possible that all of this is on the Warlock side, that he was contacted by the Great Other, and he's drinking Warlock juice to get in contact with the Astral Realm. Like, In Ice and Fire, it appears there is only one astral realm. There are multiple ways to get there. Melisandre uses flame visions. Other people use glass candles. Blood Ravens using the Weirwood net. And the Undying are using Shade of the Evening. They're all seeing the same stuff. And they can see each other, even though they're using different methods. Okay, Blood Raven and Mel see each other. One's using fire vision, the other's using Weirwood net vision. So, Astral Realm is one. And so I think that, like, it's not... like, Euron may or may not have some First Man blood. The Farwinds are skin changers. So if you want, you could say there's some skin changer genes potentially running around for him to tap into. But I tend to think it's more like, you know, coming through the Seastone chair or some other means of psychic invasion that now he's using the warlock juice in order to further. That's parallel to what Bloodraven and Bran are doing, but not quite the same. However, it could be possible that he literally does have the potential to be a green seer and has that blood somehow. But I tend to lean towards it being a parallel.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't have to be a literal skin changer to still be breaking the taboos. What's more important is the thematic element of what Bran is doing to Hodor unknowingly versus what Euron is fully awarely doing to other people.
Right, so let's go to the Night Fort here. This is Bran's third tower. Come here, go. I'm sorry, you can't go in the drawer. She wants to go in the drawer. She can't, though. Step down. Like I said, the Night Fort, the tower is hidden. It's underground, but the well has the spiral steps. So that's your tower, and they go from the top to the bottom. So they're traversing it. At the top is the Weirwood and the kitchens. Bran compares the Night Fort event to the Queen's Crown scene because Hodor starts hodoring when they're coming, when Sam and Gilly and all them are coming up the steps. Hodor starts making noise. And Bran thinks, oh, it's just like at the Night Fort. And then he Hodors him again. So there's no lightning here. But that's the parallels that's drawn in by Bran thinking about the scene in the middle of the one scene. Also, there is the moon. And there's the hole in the kitchens. The dome of the kitchens, meaning like the hole in the dome of the sky, you know, cracked heavens or whatever. And the Weirwood is trying to pull the moon down into the well, right? So, it's not a lightning bolt, but since the moon meteors fall from the sky, like that's kind of similar. They are the fire of the gods falling from the heavens, and the Weirwood tree is trying to pull it down. So we've got the dark, at the bottom we have the dark tunnels and the maze, and here I will show off my other commissioned artwork. This is the Black Gate by Theo Sick, or Seek. I need to ask him how to say the last name. There's your Black Gate. Look, a very Undying one looking Black Gate, I might add. And this is Atlantis Morissette's Black Gate, which is more of an Old Nan looking Black Gate. But either way, it works. So yeah, there's, you know, a maze theoretically in that there's more tunnels back here. And this is a Weirwood cavern. Now, I want to talk about the sea monster at the bottom of the well. George put a literary sea monster down there, okay? Hodor drops the rock, just like Mines of Moria and the Balrog. Very reminiscent of Tolkien. Nobody misses that. And Bran says, you could have wakened anything up there. And he listens, and he's like, oh, the water swallowed it like a quivering, gelid mouth. He thought he heard something swimming around. So the language puts a Lovecraftian sea monster down in the well. Oh, who knows what's down there? Okay,
it's color out of space. Whatever was down in that well, and then that's where they find the bodies of Nahum Gardner's children. So it's
right
again layers.
That thing is in the well too.
Yeah.
So then the coda to it is when Sam comes up out of the well, because Sam is a Leviathan. He is described as a Leviathan in a derogatory way because he's round and big. However, the Leviathan can be, in Ice and Fire, people sometimes use it to describe any large sea creature, so whales are gray Leviathans. However, Leviathan specifically is in the Bible is a sea monster, is a sea dragon, a sea serpent. And then brings in Lotan, seven-headed sea serpent, and all this other stuff. So first, Bran hears something swimming around down there, and then a Leviathan comes up out of the well. And when it's coming up, everyone's terrified, scared, witless. Bran's like, oh, it's the thing that came in the night. So think about, again, going back to Hightower and whatever Euron is going to do there. Think about something being born, the thing that came out of, the thing that came in the night. Something terrible coming up from the underworld, maybe a sea monster. Mm-hmm. So maybe a kraken, a literal kraken, maybe the spirit of Cthulhu in Ice and Fire terminology, which would be like the Great Other. Maybe the Deep Ones, if George really wants to have us see Deep Ones, then maybe the army from the deeps is the idea here. But yeah, something nasty is coming out of the underworld.
Yeah. For me, I would see it, if we're applying the Lovecraft thing, it would be the next step up. And this applies to, can we go ahead and talk about Euron being possessed now? Because
we have been talking about that.
Okay. It seemed like we were talking a lot more about Bran. But anyway, so I've said that Euron is the quintessential Lovecraft character. George literally made a Lovecraft character, put him in his own story. That's Euron. Anytime a Lovecraft character starts to toy with these realms of the gods, it never ends up good for them. Nefrin Kaw, Dexter Ward, Joseph Kerwin, Obed Marsh never ends up well. The closest it comes to well is Randolph Carter, again in Dream Quest. And that's because Randolph Carter never actually makes it to the city of Kadath. The Night Gaunts drop him off outside the gate. As he's about to step past the gate and go into the city, he is greeted. It is Nyarla Hotep. He is in the disguise he is in his earthly avatar, the Black Pharaoh. He rides out to meet Randolph Carter. And he makes it very clear to Carter that if you step foot in this city, I am going to hurt you in ways you can't imagine. And
I remember that. Yeah.
And then Randolph Carter wakes up. Like, that's it. Happy ending. You didn't die. You didn't go crazy. That's a testament to Lovecraft, because Lovecraft he dreaded the idea of going insane because both of his parents died in a mental institution. But it's like that's how low the bar is of good endings for Lovecraft characters. Euron's not going to wake from this dream. He doesn't. He's chasing it too much. He's more going to end up the way these other guys do. Well, you know the phrase, there's always a bigger fish? I think that's what's going to happen to Euron. Now, Euron is Hastur, and just as the drowned god is Cthulhu. But in Lovecraft, there is a sort of hierarchy. The elder gods do have a realm above them, which are the outer gods. These are Azathoth and Nyarla Hotep. And it's just like how here, George gives us, we get our kings, we get god kings, things like emperors and pharaohs, and then god. That seems like that's the progression. Euron wants to be more than a king. He wants to go to the level of god. In order to get there, first he needs to get to the level of God King. That's the Bloodstone Emperor parallel. Again, Bloodstone Emperor, the layers. Bloodstone Emperor worships a black stone that falls from space. He casts down the gods of the Great Empire to worship it. Nefrin Kaw, the Black Pharaoh, casts down the gods of Egypt to worship a black stone. Bloodstone Emperor is Nefrin Kaw, and they're both drawing on the real-life pharaoh of Amenhotep, Akhenaten, who tried to set up worship of the sun disk at the expense of the other Egyptian gods. And even Lovecraft himself drew upon that name. Amenhotep becomes Nyarla Hotep, the chaos god. So in that sense, if Euron is Hastur, then that must mean that there's a level above him, the Nyarla Hotep of the story. That is what I see being the Great Other. Now, on my channel, in my Coffin for a Kraken video, I read a story called In the Halls of the Yellow King. In that story, the Yellow King is defeated, Hastur is defeated by Nyarla Hotep when he is trapped in a black coffin with the help of Cthulhu's daughter. So I theorize that this is like Euron being taken down by Jon and Asha, because I think Asha has to play some. Asha and Theon need to play some role. Theon being the latecomer and Asha losing the King's Moot. There's got to be a round 2 for Asha in this somewhere.
Yeah, that's the only logical conclusion for Asha, is to have something to do with taking down Euron, obviously.
So the concept is that if Euron raises to this level of God King, but he doesn't quite get to God, when he does whatever he's going to do that really unlocks it, it's not going to work in his favor. This is what I've talked about always when I say Euron is going to get steamrolled. Euron will be possessed by something greater than him, and his role, and which is the biggest sort of irony for a person like Euron. For Euron, who has abused and tortured and raped people, for him to be hijacked like that, to be overpowered, to be dominated by a force greater than him, to be mind crushed.
Right, because remember, like Euron's Aeron's chapters, the screaming hinge is in all of them. Like, this guy is so traumatized by the abuse of Euron that hearing the sound of the door opening and Euron coming in, like, that's his nightmare sound, and it's in his, he hears it all the time. So, like, yes, this is going to happen to Euron. It's the only really fitting ending is for him to get run over, you know.
Yeah. So think, Nyarlathotep sealing Hastur in a black coffin, the spirit of Azor Ahai overtaking Euron and using his body as a vessel. That's what I see being like what George is. That seems to be the natural progression that I think George is going to play upon. It never, again, because it never ends well for the Lovecraft characters who meddle in these things. They always either they get killed or they get possessed or something bad happens to them. So the idea that Euron is going to be body snatched by something that's going to overpower him, and he is going to be like Hodor, hiding in the recesses of his own mind, that seems like the big up for him, the big his punishment,
so when he's saying a new god is born from the graves and charnel pits, he's like, aha, it's going to be me. And it's like, well,
no, kinda. Gonna wear you.
Be wearing you as a suit.
Yeah. It's gonna wear you as a flesh suit, but
and so what I'm trying to show in these Bran scenes is that George is laying the precedent for that in all of these scenes. There is some dragon, beast, sea monster from the sea being born up that is coming back out. It's already there. It's already dead, and it's waking. Okay, the Winterfell dragon, the noise they made coming out of the crypts. Okay, and that was Bran coming out of the crypts. So instead, it's Euron. And then we've got at Queen's Crown, we've got the wolf descending out of the sky, out of the darkness, death descending among them, tearing and biting and maiming. And then we've got here at the Night Fort, it's like Bran thinks about things coming out of the well all day. He thinks about, every horror story at the Night Fort while doing it. And then Sam, the Black Leviathan, ultimately comes out of the well. So something's coming up out of the sea or out of the Weirwood Net, one or the other, at Oldtown. Now, a couple other things that happened at the Night Fort. The Rat Cook. The Rat Cook is a big rat. It was a person that got turned into a rat. Now he's a rat. A big white rat with red eyes. Jesus. Has to eat its own descendants. Well, this is a Weirwood thing. The Weirwood Gate eats Bran. And lots of Bran's ancestors are in the Weirwood Net. So that's what the Rat Cook is about, consuming your own young. There's even a tear, when Bran goes through the gate. So you could even read into that like, oh, the ancestors are regretful. We've got to use up another Bran. But hey, sorry. We're hungry. We need corn. Corn Bran. So Mira ensnares the sea monster Sam with a net and a trident. So is Hands of White Fire Lady, Euron's sorceress queen. Is she helping him ensnare and control the thing that they're trying to call up and have be born? Again, Alysanne riding the ice dragon at all of these scenes. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're trying to zero in on this archetype that's standing next to Euron of Hands of White Fire Lady. There's some precedent for that. I think Mira could be doing that here. Because ensnaring it in the net, I mean, that's such a potent symbol. I should point out Loki is just like, we mentioned the Nidhogg dragon under Yggdrasil. Nidhogg gets freed at Ragnarok, just like Jormungandr is freed. All the beasties break loose at Ragnarok, right? So Nidhogg gets free. Jormungandr releases his tail, and he gets free. Also, the Horn of Jormung, a dragon horn that might break down the wall. Jormungandr. And then Loki he is also imprisoned under the tree, and he breaks free. Okay, now Loki, the name Loki is tied to the word for knots and weaving. And so Loki's chaos is like knotted and tangled, things that are tangled up. Okay? And so that's why he's associated with nets and other things related to nets. And so, yeah, when Mira ensnares the Leviathan in her net coming up out of the sea, it definitely, all this stuff makes me think of Loki, because there's a lot of Loki symbolism. I should do a whole episode of it with just as far as the trickster and all that kind of thing. Summer leaps down through the hole in the roof. We saw Summer leaping down out of the sky, essentially, at Queen's Crown, right? And then the wolves are prowling above in the Godswood at Winterfell. So here we see Summer leaping down through the hole in the roof like the moon or like a strike of lightning. And she lands as soft as a snowfall, light as a snowfall. So that gives you the long night rain coming. And then, Alysanne visited there and shut it down. She did not like it, Sam I am. And then the Night Fort, obviously, is where Knights King and Queen did their thing. And I think that is a story about the creation of the others. So the fact that the Night Fort is one of these tower parallels just shows you, Euron becoming a king of the apocalypse, potentially a new Night King vessel for the old Night King. One of these parallels is the Night Fort. So Bloodraven's cave, the tree is the tower, obviously. Bran climbs it. We're in the cave maze below, just like at Winterfell. There's a dark river down there, so that's our body of water. Summer is prowling above once again. And the roots, like we mentioned, are like snakes and graveworms. And Bloodraven, also a serpent down there. We've kind of already talked about this. We don't need to go over that. But this is where all of this stuff is leading to. And you can see all the same patterns repeated. We see Leaf as the priestess here, as a child of the forest now. Helping Bran manage the magic that he is calling up. So then when we go to the Euron parallels, like I said, the Hightower is a weirwood symbol. It has the maze below. It's got the shadow sword and the crown of flame that are Azor Ahai symbols. So it's a place where Euron can become Azor Ahai. The Isle of Ravens. So the Isle of Ravens is the whole story in miniature. It's another island in the Whispering Sound, just like Battle Isle. And the Isle of Ravens used to be controlled by a pirate lord in the Age of Heroes. I don't know who that pirate lord was. I think this might just be a mangled version of the Great Empire of the Dawn people coming to Battle Isle and basically living there and preying off the people around them. But who knows? The point is, Euron is the pirate lord, and he's not going to rule from the Isle of Ravens. He's going to take over the Hightower. Yeah. But the Hightower and the Isle of Ravens, this is what I'm saying, they're parallel. So the Isle of Ravens has a weirwood tree on it. The Hightower is a symbol of a weirwood. And the Isle of Ravens also has the rookery there with the white ravens. Those are the ones that signal that winter is coming. So white ravens, then we have the White Tower, and Euron calling the long night at the tower, signaling that winter is coming. So I think that this whole pirate lord thing is important because the original Azor Ahai came over the water from Shai, and then we have all these other Azor Ahai pirate people. So there's Dalton Greyjoy. He's the Red Kraken. So, Lightbringer, Red Sword of Heroes. Dalton Greyjoy, the Red Kraken, he attacked Oldtown. Did he not? No, the Reach, not Oldtown, the Reach. And then there is, and there's something about him being covered in blood on the deck of his ship. So it reminds you of the Silence and its blood-covered decks. Daemon Targaryen, he becomes King of the Narrow Sea and takes Bloodstone for his seat. So he's both a pirate lord and a Bloodstone Emperor Redux and a Dragon Lord, all those things. And then Orain Waters, that's the one I wanted to talk about. Orain Waters, Cersei thinks he looks like Rhaegar with green eyes. Kinda. So, cheap Rhaegar, if you will.
Cheap Rhaegar, yeah.
So this is like Rhaegar of the Green Sea. That's Azor Ahai of the Green Sea. Orain Waters steals the Dromans and literally becomes the king of the waters, and he becomes a pirate lord.
He becomes a pirate, yeah.
So Rhaegar is a pirate lord. That's Azor Ahai, if you will.
So something I want to point out was on the Isle of Ravens, 2 Archmaesters have their chambers there. One is Archmaester Walgrave. That is the old senile guy that Pate, aka Jockin, steals the key from. And the other one is, of course, Marwyn the Mage. And Sam is guided there by Alaris the Sphinx. So, yeah. The Keeper of the Dragon Key and Marwyn the Mage live on the Isle of Ravens.
Yeah, it's a good place. It's a place I'd want to be. And the bridge that goes... The Isle of Ravens seems like it's within the Citadel or it's adjoining the Citadel. There's a bridge that never comes up that people walk back and forth from the Citadel to this place. And it's got this ravenry there. So seems like an extension of the Citadel. Now... Euron, I think, compares to Orion, the first and last emperor of Valyria. After the Doom, he gathered a force in Qohor, Tim, and 30,000 people strong went to Valyria. He flew off on the back of his dragon. He was never seen again. Now, Orion, Euron, similar names. And if Euron calls a dragon and then flies north, that's what's going to be his story. Is he flew north on a dragon and was never seen again because he's going to have some showdown at the Heart of Winter or whatever. And he is trying to be an emperor of Valyria. This is the thing. He's trying to be a god man, an emperor of Westeros, but dressing like a Valyrian. So he really does compare well to Orion. But then Orain, his name sounds like Orion, and he's a pirate lord. Rhaegar figure. So you can see all these 3 figures, I think, are parallel, where Euron is a pirate lord and a Valyrian emperor who may fly off on his dragon and never be seen again. And this is where I'll bring up Brandon, the shipwright. He is a parallel to Bran because he builds a fleet to sail the endless sea, just like Bran is, sailing the Green Sea, and he sails off and is never seen again. And the super chat was asking, did he go back to the east where the Starks came from, maybe, or something? I don't know. You can speculate on that if you want. That's pure tinfoil. Did he make it to the Great Empire of the Dawn or the Grey Waste or something? I don't know. Maybe. I like the idea. But the more important idea is the idea of a green seer sailing off into the sea and never being seen again. And that could be, ultimately... That's going to be Bloodraven and Euron, not Bran. But
it's a story that's repeated with Alyssa Farman. What happened to her? We know that she sailed west. They find those 3 islands with the pigs and the Komodo dragons. A lot of the guys return back, but she continues onward. And then we don't know quite what happened to her, but we get the detail that a ship is seen in a Shai that people believe is Sunbreaker, and then. The show at least made this out to be Arya's end story, that she was going to sail west, sail the Sunset Sea. So she becomes Brandon the shipwright, at least as far as the show goes. That might be something that George has planned as Arya's end. I don't know, but it's
I
definitely
actually
there.
do think that could make sense because it sort of parallels the idea of Frodo. He's not fit to live with humans anymore because he's changed too much. Arya might be in that category. Our latest idea, though, in the Harrenhal stream, we said, what if she goes back to Harrenhal and turns it into a big orphanage, takes care of everybody? That'd be cool. So then, yes, at Hightower at Oldtown, will Euron wake a sea monster? Certainly, this is an idea. Let me put up this art that you guys have seen before. I'll put it in the notes window since it's horizontal. So this is Serpent Guy's artwork. Euron storming through Oldtown. People have thought maybe he's going to call a Kraken up. Yeah, I mean, this could be a thing where George is giving us two versions of the idea. There'll be a physical monster from the sea, but then also, the great other monster from the Weirwood Net Sea. We could get both. And I turned it red because, Sea of Blood. So it could be what we're talking about. But yeah, there's a lot of things coming out of the ground and out of the sea. Leighton's army from the deeps. If Leighton's on Team Euron, that could be an army for Euron. Euron could be entering the astral plane at the Hightower because Bran does that at the Nightford. He gets swallowed by the Black Gate and then is on his way to Bloodraven's cave, and he's using his Weirwood powers, his Greenseer powers at all these towers. So Euron might gain access to the Weirwood Net or just might have some sort of breakthrough. But I just want to point out that, like Bran and Bloodraven, they could perceive what Euron is doing after this point. Something like that. And then also, you look at the Waymar precedent for lightning, a broken tree, a broken tower. Will the Hightower break? That would be sad since I just built it. But maybe lightning will strike the tower, and it will turn black. I do think of the in Numenor, they turned the temple black when they cut down Nimloth. Under the influence of Sauron and Ar-Pharazôn, they started burning this sacred white tree in the temple, and it turned the dome black, and it was smoking there ever after. So I have wondered if there could be a thing where the Hightower is all blackened and charred and is turned into a black tower, like Orthanc, or Barad-dûr, rather.
Yeah. Although Euron as a Sauron figure also still, again, the bigger fish, because Sauron has above him is Morgoth, so yeah.
I don't know if Morgoth's around anymore. I think Morgoth is in like some psychic pit somewhere or something.
But at one point, Morgoth was above him, so
yes.
Yeah. It's just like, Euron's always these comparisons we have to Euron, to both the King and the Yellow and to Sauron, is in the grand scheme of things, both of those characters are also in the mid tier. They still have greater entities above them, and that's why the idea of Euron being body snatched by something one level above just seems to make the most sense to me.
Yeah, I really think the fun part will be trying to guess when it's happened and what's going on from the outside.
Yeah, because I've said, like, hopefully some of this Euron stuff is going to be seen from Sam's POV, because the damp hair is high as hell right now. And I know in my heart of hearts that George is going to use the damp hair tripping on Shade of the Evening as a means of camouflaging what's really going on and what magic things are happening, because we're going to have an unreliable narrator.
Ah, that unreliable narrator. George's cloak of deception. So Melora Hightower, Tim, this is the last thing I have for you. Obviously, if Leighton is on Team Euron, then he may just be like, yes, of course you can marry my daughter. Maegor's first wife, Cerise Hightower, by the way. So, could see that parallel. Melora Hightower, the Mad Maid, is she Hands of White Fire Lady? This has been a question. Well, I went looking at the name, okay? So, Greek translation of Melora, so Melora, is golden apple. Aura's apple, Mel's gold. So, and that's if you think of the Melii, they're the ash tree nymphs. They collect the golden sap. So it's similar root word there. But so that's interesting because, of course, there is a Rowan gold tree, daughter of Garth. So there's a gold tree in the Reach in their mythology. And the concept of the gold tree is just like the magic tree, a tree that has, the food of the gods, the sap of the gods. Because Zeus was nurtured on the ash tree sap that the Melii nymphs fed him. So that's the positive side of Melora's name. But of course, Mallory in French means unfortunate or unlucky, and the original Latin root is malus auguris, which means bad omen. So, and there's a lot of witch names. It is kind of a witch name. It's been used for a lot of witches. Malinrow, Maleficent, just various variants. Why did I try to say that? Of the name Mallory, often associated with witches. So that's definitely what I think of when I hear the Mad Maid Melora, right?
Yeah, because when it comes to Hands of White Fire Lady, like the two candidates seem to have either been Melora or Cersei. Cersei because of the wildfire imagery.
Well, hang on with Cersei if you could. Yeah. Just give me your thoughts on Melora.
Yeah. Well, in the sense, when you said before, if the Hands of White Fire Lady is someone who's going to help Euron in all this magical stuff, Melora makes a lot more sense than Cersei, because Cersei wouldn't know crap about any of this. Cersei's more important politically than magically. So, yeah, I can see Melora Hightower being a contender for this. My one problem with that, and this is just a personal thing, it's just when you're introducing characters of this vital importance this late in the story, that's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I would rather Hands of White Fire Lady be someone who's been more established, but it's not. Obviously, I'm not gonna throw the book across the room and say I hate this if Melora ends up being it. It's just personally, I don't like characters this late in the game being of importance. At least with Howland Reed, even though we haven't seen him, his name has been dropped a bunch, whereas Melora only has the one mention.
Interesting. Sean MacArthur points out the name Thomas Mallory, of course, an Arthurian historian and author, writer. And so, of course, there's tons of Arthurian stuff around the Hightower. Arthur Dane and Gerald Hightower and Uthor Hightower. It's all, yeah, that makes sense too. Naming Melora Hightower. That's probably on his mind. So, yeah, I guess what I would say about the idea of adding a character late, Tim, is that she can't be that important. You know what I mean? Like, if she's an accessory to Euron's plot, then, whatever. But she's not suddenly going to become more important than Cersei and have POVs and, you know what I mean? Like, so ultimately, anybody that marries Euron might not live that long, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Euron might end up using them as a sacrifice. If we're going with Maegor parallels for Euron, Maegor had tons of wives, and most of them got killed. So, we look at Folly of Flowers. He seems, if he sees Dany as a Nissa Amethyst Empress redux, Bloodstone Emperor killed Amethyst Empress. So, maybe this is his Tiana of the Tower. Maybe Melora Hightower is just, like I said, his Tiana at his side, helping him do evil to other people for a while. That could kind of make sense, right? Yeah.
Although, so the other thing I want to hard on is the golden apple stuff. So when we go back to the Space Mead out of Lovecraft, the Space Mead is yellow. It's a golden mead, and it's said to have a very sweet taste right from the beginning. This Flora flies in the face of Shade of the Evening, which tastes like rancid meat and ink, but with additional sips, it gets better. Same thing with Weirwood Paste. Weirwood Paste is a very sharp taste, but additional bites, it gets better. Space Mead is pleasing from the very beginning. And that's how with Old Town, it sits on the honey wine, Arbor Gold, very sweet wine. So I think like there is a parallel with that.
It makes sense. Yeah, and I think all of these psychedelic substances are like a key. They are something that enables you to transcend, to visit a place you couldn't. Yeah, it's all the same kind of idea. So Nemesis threw a golden apple labeled for the fairies that started the beauty contest of the gods to start the Trojan War. Ah, right. So, okay. That's an interesting one. So the golden apple can be used with the apple of discord, right? So that's an interesting concept to think about with Melora, because Euron will be starting a war. They'll be declaring him king, and there's already a king in King's Landing. So I think that all fits pretty well. So I think Diana of the Tower is the comp for Melora. I think that is the kind of role that she would play with Euron. Like, Euron still is looking for Dany, right? Mm-hmm. But he's going to have Melora at his side potentially. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Sorry, Hightower fans. We're going dark.
Which is, like I said, is a bad plan for Euron, because Euron is entering the slave trade and Dany wants to free slaves. So it's like, Euron has no idea what Dany's all about.
Yeah, the Euron Dany thing, that's a whole nother topic that we have to get into. I think that there's a very short window of time that Euron could present himself in a way that might come across well, kind of Dario-esque. But if she hears anything about what he's up to, then she's not going to go for any of it. So,
yeah, like if Vic is able to actually tell, like, let me tell you what my brother is really like when Victarion makes it there, assuming he lives long enough to actually be able to converse with Dany, that might, yeah.
So, Rob Adamson is saying that Melora is the name of the witch that Conan found in the Wastes, at least in the movie. That's interesting.
I need to rewatch Conan the Barbarian. I really do.
Tim's scratching his memory.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch that movie. It's been so long since I've seen it.
Cool. So basically, after looking at this Melora stuff and thinking about and coming up with this theory about the Hightowers being on Team Euron, this all makes me think that Hands of White Fire Lady, it is her, because it's like at his side, he's cackling and laughing and all the stuff's going on. And White Fire Lady is like it's tall shadow at his side, tall, pale shadow. And the Hightower itself is a tall, pale shadow. So it works really well for me. But I've also, there's also the idea that Night's Queen's spirit is out there, and that's who might be possessing or controlling Euron, not Night's King, but Night's Queen. And so Hands of White Fire Lady that's who that is. But I think I'm leaning away from that idea.
Though, if the big bad villain was a woman all along like that, yeah.
I think that Night's Queen / Nissa Nissa, she might be somewhere out there, because she might need to be rescued or set free at the end. There's that, we see that note in some of the parallels with some of the Nissa Nissa characters. So I think that could be somehow just like rectifying the nature goddess or something like that. So I don't think Nissa Nissa or Night's Queen is coming back out to do a bunch of evil stuff. That would be Azor Ahai to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
his spirit.
I will now take final questions, and then we're going to get out of here. I'll probably play the Hightower video one more time. In fact, let's do that while you guys think of questions to ask me. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I remember how to do this now.
So I did have a thought with Blood Rage.
Tim, I had just tragically realized that nobody could hear us just now. I heard everything you said. The audience did not. I am very sorry. And no, I did not. Hang on. Now I can't get rid of the video. Source. Camera. Here we are. And we're back. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
So, as I was saying, the audience did not hear what you just shared about Bloodraven. But it was interesting. They were enthralled by the Hightower. So just back up a second. You were mentioning that Bloodraven ignored Dalton Greyjoy during the Blackfire Rebellions.
Yeah. So Dagon, Dalton's the one during the dance. Dagon is the one during the Blackfires. So what I was saying was, I was wondering if Bloodraven is aware of Euron, because he seems focused on the others, and that's what he's leading Bran to. And I was saying this shows that Bloodraven is still stuck in his ways from life, and I compared it to Dagon Greyjoy. In life, Bloodraven ignored Dagon Greyjoy because he was so focused on the Blackfire rebellions, and that's what caused a lot of animosity to Bloodraven. He was aware of Dagon Greyjoy, but he wasn't doing anything about it. Euron is the second coming of Dagon Greyjoy. Dagon Greyjoy is the last Reaver, and Euron he's even though he's still pretty new because he lived during Bloodraven's lifetime, he hasn't been dead that long. He rose to the heights of being like a legendary figure among Ironborn, the last Reaver. And Euron is stirring up the Ironborn in a way that hasn't been seen since this Dagon guy. And I've said, Euron's the quintessential Lovecraft character, so for him to be like the second coming of Dagon Greyjoy, who is named after another Lovecraft story, Dagon, which is, we talked about Dagon's a Sumerian god, but there is the Lovecraft story Dagon. I was wondering, it's making me think, like, is Bloodraven even aware of Euron? There is the failed student idea, in which case, yeah, he should be aware of him. Or the other path is it wasn't Bloodraven that contacted Euron, but something else. In which case, is Bloodraven even aware of him as a threat, or is he just ignoring him the way he did in life because he's so focused on this other thing?
I like that a lot. That makes a ton of sense, that parallel. So that would be very interesting if he was ignoring him. Even if he is a failed pupil, like he might have lost contact with him when he left overseas or something like that. But literally, ignoring Dagon, it's like, oh, you're ignoring the deep ones. You're ignoring the power of Yeah.
That's why people are so angry at Bloodraven during the Dunk and Egg novels. It's like the drought and all these other things, and then Dagon Greyjoy is another one of these things that he's viewed as like, yo, this is a problem at home that you're not taking care of. Stop looking across the narrow sea. Well, here it's like, hey, this is a problem at home that we're not taking care of. Stop looking in the weirwood net.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then it's like he'll. That's why I was saying, like, I'm looking for a way that some of the stuff that Jon and Bran and Bloodraven are doing could intersect with what Euron is doing because they are touching each other on the astral plane. I'm not sure how. I just want to put this idea in everyone's heads so that they won't be surprised when it happens. At some, like we saw this moment when Melisandre perceived Bloodraven and Bran through the Weirwood net. More of that is coming. More moments where two magic users are perceiving each other across time and space are coming. Dany's going to be using the glass candle, so she might get in touch with Euron or Great Empire of the Dawn spirits or who knows who else. Or Melisandre might see Dany when she starts using the candle, be like, oh, there's Azor Ahai. Jon in his dream could be contacted by any of these people. I just want to emphasize, there's only one psychic highway. There's multiple on-ramps, and more people are using those on-ramps here at the end of the story.
I gotta stop you, Dave, because you're in the danger zone.
What's that?
I said I got highway, and I said to the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone.
Yeah, my voice. I'm not singing today, but
crossed wires on the psychic highway. That's the danger zone.
So periscopic. I've never really been a fan of the idea that Night's Queen was quote unquote participating in Night's King's evils. It's more like she was turning his power against him once he was in the Weirwood net. Creating the others might have been the only way to save those spirits or something like that. So that's a little far afield, but that's how I see her character. And that's how I see most of the parallel characters as well. So let me just look here. And yeah, like I said, final questions, let me know. And I will answer them, and then I'm going to go ahead and get out of here because we've been on for like 3 hours. But I think if I could try to sum up what I'm saying, it's that whatever Euron does at the top of the tower is not just going to be about the dragon. All of the Bran parallels point to something involving the Weirwoods and the astral plane. He might be using Shade of the Evening instead of Weirwood paste, but whatever he does at the Hightower, it's going to affect the Weirwood net. It's going to call a spirit out of the Weirwood net. It could be, like we said, calling the Night King spirit out of Jon into him, or just calling it up. It could be releasing the others or taking control of the others through the Weirwood net. Like, there is a Weirwood component to what's going on here, like a Weirwood net component to whatever Euron is going to do. It's going to put him on the psychic highway like a green seer in some way after this, because that's what's happening at all Bran's tower scenes. He's opening his third eye, he's using his wolf, he's becoming a green seer, he's doing all this stuff. So whatever Euron does at the Hightower, it's got to parallel all of that. And just calling a dragon that's not enough. That doesn't match. So we need a spirit called out of the Weirwood net, or we need Euron to gain access to the Weirwood net and be able to terrorize Bran and Bloodraven. Something like that. Yeah. That is kind of how I'd like to sum up that idea.
Oh, you did say when I brought up Cersei to hang on to that for a second. Was there something you wanted to allude to with Cersei?
I don't really even want to talk about Cersei. If you want to, you can, but I just... Yeah, I mean...
No, just that she was the other candidate for Hands of White Fire Lady because of the wildfire symbolism. But to be honest, I don't know if there's anything that Euron could gain by taking Cersei right now, considering how unpopular she is. Does she even as a means of political gain? I'm not sure if it's really if she's even good as a stepping stone for him anymore.
I don't think there's any Euron Cersei intersection at all coming. I think they got nothing to do with each other. That's my opinion. That's only on the show, and it was really dumb It didn't make any sense. It didn't seem like, oh, that came from Martin. It's just a little different. It just was dumb. So don't see it. Don't see the motivations for either character. Euron is busy with magical women and stuff, and don't see it. Oh, and Cersei's wildfire symbolism is not in her hands, and it's never white fire. And it's not a sorceress thing. It's about her using wildfire to blow shit up. My opinion. So. Oh, God. All right. Okay, guys. I love you. This has been a fun stream. And I hope you like the Hightower. You'll be seeing it more in the next couple months. And like I said, I've got a 90-minute plus Origins of Oldtown video with some brand new stuff in it that I have been keeping under wraps. That'll be coming after the House of the Dragon season. So a little something to look forward to for after the season. This stream was a little bit of a, here's some ice and fire symbolism before the House of the Dragon, 2 months for y'all. I know everybody watches the show. Some of you guys are definitely more into ice and fire. So hope you appreciated this stream. We're going to do Dragon Lore Iceberg next week. That'll be overlap. That'll have some House of the Dragon and some ice and fire relevance both. Well, lots for both. So I'll hit you with a Jace and Bela video this week. Tim, what do you got coming up on your channel? I know you put one out today, so I guess that's maybe what you want to remind everybody.
I had been working on the... It's hard for me because I have a day job, but yeah, the next serious vid, I keep saying, will be it's got to get back on the Dany and the Lemon Tree video. And then after that, I want to look at this Ahai Ghostgrass, how the Wormwood parallel. That was going to be the next one. Absinthe from Ahai, which is sparked by Tyrion finding wine from Ahai in Illyrio's wine cellar in the chapter reads I've been doing.
And I don't know Alt Swift Hill. I don't know Fantasy Haven. Do you know that channel?
I know Fantasy Haven. He's big with Quinn the GM.
He's what?
He does a lot of stuff with Quinn the GM. He does
okay.
He does animated video. Like he covered the whole history of House Frey, and he did it with little animations.
Yeah, that's okay. I have seen that. That is really cool. Yeah, I liked that. I was trying to remember. Okay. Yes. And of course we love Quinn the GM around here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I probably would. I'm into collabing in general. We're going to try to do more of that again after the season's over. All right, cool guys. Well, like I said, this has been a fun stream, and I will see you this week with more content. You've been a beautiful audience, and I can't talk anymore. All right, see ya.